Everyone, and welcome. We are continuing our reading of the Kybalion, and we will be exploring transforming love and hate and a lot more, the law of polarity. We have a lot to get into today. As always, if this is your first time joining us, you don't have to have read or seen the other parts to enjoy this video. You can watch these completely standalone. If this is your first time, that's fine. You're going to like it. It's going to be good. Now, as you know, we are engaged in a war of the mind, so we use Mondays to arm ourselves with knowledge. Remember, guys, that as we read, you can use the super chat feature to ask questions and things like this as we go along. And I will be having the text on screen as we read, so that you can follow along as well. And remember, as always, this is going to be interpreted and discussed through the lens of Hyperianism and Ontological Mathematics, so we can see how much further we can go, even beyond what the Kybalion says, and discover infinitely more knowledge by using logic, reason, and ontological mathematics. So I'm really excited to delve into this with you guys. I can't tell you how much I enjoy these Mondays readings. And just real quick, I want to say hello to everyone. Hello, Sandra, Kaede, and Twisted Kitty, Joey, Michael. Hello, everyone. We are Kizzy. Good to see you. We are about to get started here. So I hope you're excited. You should be. I'm excited. And let us begin. Remember to hit that like button as we go. Smash that like button. Transform and transcend the like button. All right. So let's get started. We have a lot of exciting things to dig into today. And we begin with polarity. Everything is dual. Everything has poles. Everything has its pair of opposites. Like and unlike are the same. Opposites are identical in nature, but different in degree. Extremes meet. All truths are but half-truths. All paradoxes may be reconciled. The Kybalion. This is going to be an important discussion because what many people do is they look in terms of duality instead of polarity. And it's incredibly important to understand the difference between duality and polarity. So duality says that there are two different things, right? Let's say two different things, such as love and hate. That's what duality says. Two separate things, love and hate. Polarity says that these are just extremes of the same thing. So again, two poles. You can imagine one pole being here, one pole being here, one side being labeled love, the other side being labeled hate, and all the variations in between. So you can think of it like a thermometer too, right? If you have a thermometer, one side being hot, one side being cold, and all the degrees in between. You see how there's not two separate things, but rather it's the same thing. Temperature. It's temperature. That temperature can be either hot or cold. So you see the difference between duality and polarity. Duality says there are two things that are just separate, distinct from each other. Whereas polarity says there is only one thing in actuality, and there are two extremes or poles to that one thing. The great fourth Hermetic principle, the principle of polarity, embodies the truth that all manifested things have two sides, two aspects, two poles, a pair of opposites, with manifold degrees between the two extremes. The old paradoxes, which have ever perplexed the mind of men, are explained by an understanding of this principle. Man has always recognized something akin to this principle, and has endeavored to express it by such sayings, maxims, and aphorisms as the following. Everything is and isn't at the same time. All truths are but half-truths. Every truth is half false. There are two sides to everything. There is a reverse side to every shield, etc., etc. The Hermetic teachings are to the effect that the difference between things seemingly diametrically opposed to each other is merely a matter of degree. It teaches that opposites may be reconciled, and that thesis and antithesis are identical in nature but different in degree, and that the universal reconciliation of opposites is effected by a recognition of this principle of polarity. The teacher claims that illustrations of this principle may be had on every hand, and from an examination into the real nature of anything. They begin by showing that spirit and matter are but the two poles of the same thing, the intermediate planes being merely degrees of vibration. So remember that in the Kybalion, basically spirit is very highly evolved mind. Remember once again that the German word Geist means spirit and mind at the same time. So whenever we see the word spirit, we can replace it with mind. So they begin by showing that mind and matter are but two poles of the same thing. And so we've seen this before, but I'll show you again. Once again, in terms of Hyperianism and Ontological Mathematics, this is a diagram of the difference between mind and matter. Mind is blue and matter is red. This is very simplistic here, but I'm showing it. This is known as a Fourier transform. So if we look at the red wave as being a matter wave, I'm being very loose and general for ease of explanation, please remember that. But if we, in loose terms, imagine this is a space-time wave, you can see that if we take all these blue waves, which are Fourier basis waves, mind. So if we take all the blue, which is mind, and add them together, their result is the red wave. So you see they're not actually two separate things, but rather when you take mind and add it together, you get space-time wave. Okay? So this is basically saying, and this was a big problem in philosophy for a very long time. It was known as Cartesian dualism, the problem of substance dualism. And that was saying, if mind and matter are two separate things, right? Like in duality, if they're two separate things, how can they possibly interact with each other? Like, what's the connection? How do mind and matter relate if they're two separate things? But you see, with ontological mathematics, we can show that they're not actually two different things, but they're two sides of the same coin. On one side, you have mind, and the other side, you have space-time, or matter. So by shifting your perspective, depending on what you're tuning into, if you're tuning into the mental aspect, you'll be looking at this type of information, and if you're looking into the material aspect, you'll be looking at this information. This here is this side is the side of frequency information, and this side is the side of space and time information. Okay, so they begin by showing that mind and matter are but two poles of the same thing. The intermediate planes being merely degrees of vibration. They show that the all and the many are the same, the difference being merely a matter of degree of mental manifestation. And so again, with this, they're saying we can understand this much better with Hyperianism and ontological mathematics as well, that the all and the many, or the one and the many, are the same. So in Hyperianism, this is the absolute, and each one of these circles is an individual mind. What you aren't a body. Your body's just an avatar. What you truly are is a mind, an eternal mind, a monad. And each one of these circles represents one mind, one monad. So reality is composed of myriad minds, a multiplicity, many. But if you think of them as a collection of one, it's also one at the same time, right? So you have the two aspects. You have the many. There are many minds, but if you think of them as one set, it's one at the same time. You have one set of many minds. So do you see how we can reconcile apparent opposites? We can reconcile mind and matter via ontological mathematics, via Fourier transform. Two ways of looking at the same information. We can reconcile the one and the many. Is this reality one mind or many mind? You would think they would be opposites, but they're not. They are many minds, but you can look at them as being one set, a superset, if you will. So we can easily reconcile apparent opposites. Okay. They show that the all and the many are the same, the difference being merely a matter of degree. Thus, the law and laws are two opposite poles of one thing. Likewise, principle and principles, infinite mind and finite minds. Now, in Hyperianism, we know that when they talk about finite minds, each one of us, we are an infinite and an eternal mind. The only way that we can be looked at as a finite mind, so to speak, is if we're talking about our particular ego consciousness. So we are eternal minds, which are infinite. But when you, as an eternal mind, link to an avatar, your infinite nature gets filtered and limited by the brain and nervous system of this avatar. Right? Your eyes only see a certain portion of the electromagnetic spectrum. A lot of information gets filtered. So your avatar existence is finite. But what you truly are, as an eternal mind, is infinite. Then passing on to the physical plane, they illustrate the principle by showing that heat and cold are identical in nature, the difference merely being a matter of degree. So if that can be hard to grasp what we're talking about, they're using a simple example here of heat and cold being identical, but just difference by merely a matter of degree, right? Heat and cold aren't really separate things. You can transform heat into cold and cold into heat, right? There's a spectrum that it exists on. So do you see this difference between polarity and duality? Heat and cold aren't like two separate things that are opposed to each other. No, they're two ends of a spectrum, and one can be transformed into another and vice versa. The thermometer shows that many degrees of temperature, the lowest pole being called cold and the highest heat. Between these two poles are many degrees of heat and cold. Call them either, and you are equally correct. The higher of the 2 degrees is always warmer, while the lower is always colder. They're saying basically, right, if you take a thermometer, and let's say you go into the cold section, right? Zoom into the cold section. Well, if you look at 2 degrees there, well, even though you're in the cold section, if you zoom into that little piece that you're looking at, well, then you'll have 2 poles again. The lower one will be the colder, and the higher one will be the warmer. So even if you zoom into a piece of a section that's supposed to be cold, you'll find colder and warmer within that zoomed in section. There is no absolute standard. All is a matter of degree. There is no place on the thermometer where the heat ceases and cold begins. Lial Rose, thank you so much for helping us wake up the world. Lial says, love your videos and your message. Thank you so much. Your super chats are very helpful. Thank you. I'm glad you like my work. That means a lot, by the way. Get a lot of trolls, get a lot of hate. We have a lot of obstacles to overcome when putting forth new information and new knowledge. So that always means a lot to me. Okay. So basically, right, these terms of hot and cold are really arbitrary. Where does cold begin? Where does heat start? What might be cold to you might be warm to someone else, right? Have you ever been like, oh man, you know, living in California, like, brr, it's so cold. It's 60 degrees. Whereas if this is during wintertime and you talk to someone in Montana, they'll be like, you're crazy. 60 degrees is warm. It's, 2 degrees over here. So you see this labeling of hot and cold is arbitrary. It is all a matter of higher or lower vibrations, right? All this is vibrations. All this is frequency. Temperature is simply frequency. That's what temperature is. It's frequency. And so we can look at the numerical values of frequency. And being one frequency is higher than another. Applying the word hot and cold to it is a human contingent idea, abstraction. All there really is numerical frequency, rate of frequency. Our experience of that frequency is another story. Do you see what is objective? What is objective? Well, the rate of frequency. The frequency of which something is will be the same for me and the same for you. However, I might experience that frequency as hot or cold, or I might experience that frequency as cold while you experience that frequency as hot. But the value will be the same. Darlene, thank you for helping us wake up the world. So do you see how the frequency will stay the same? It's a certain number for me and it's a certain number for you, but I might experience that frequency as cold, you might experience that frequency as hot. Okay. The very terms high and low, which we are compelled to use, are but poles of the same thing. The terms are relative. So with east and west, travel around the world in an eastward direction, and you reach a point which is called west at your starting point, and you return from that westward point. Travel far enough north, and you will find yourself traveling south, or vice versa. I'm going to jump to the comments real quick, say hi to you guys, and then we're going to continue. But I just want to see what's going on in the chat, see if there's any questions or things like that. So let's take a look. Hello, everyone. Good to see you. Good to see you guys. Hello, Morbid Lydia, Corey Shaw, Iridescent C. I'm glad you're enjoying the work, Iridescent C. Hello, Jeffrey, Angela, Jordy, and Kizzy. So good to see you all. Hello, hello. Remember, guys, if you are watching on Facebook, please go subscribe to YouTube. The link is in the comments. Help us reach 100,000 subscribers, and that's where I am interacting with people in the comments. Make sure you smash that like button as well. So good to see you guys. Remember, feel free to ask questions as well as we go along. Hello, hello, everyone. Nice to see you. Okay, so we are going to continue. Credence says, my life has changed completely since studying Hyperianism. I'm very happy to hear that. Credence, ad astra panthera. Thank you, Jennifer. My favorite color is red. Jordy says, keep reading. All right, fine, Jordy. All right, you guys. I'm going to keep reading. It's Jordy's fault if you don't like it. Just kidding. Thank you, Jordy. Okay. So light and darkness are poles of the same thing, with many degrees between them. The musical scale is the same. Starting with C, you move upward until you reach another C, and so on. So if you look at a keyboard, you start on C, and you go higher and higher and higher, but then you'll eventually hit another C, and it sort of starts over. So it's cyclical. The scale of color is the same, higher and lower vibrations being the only difference between high violet and low red. Once again, yeah, everything is a matter of degree, of frequency. People have to realize that. Everything is frequency. Sound is frequency. Matter is frequency. Temperature is frequency. Color is frequency. The difference between, red and violet is simply the rate of vibration, the rate of frequency. Rose, thank you so much for helping us wake up the world. Says you're doing amazing and those haters just have closed minds. Indeed, fuck the haters. That's why I always tell people, I see a lot of people, a lot of creators will message me and go, man, how do you deal with the haters? And I always tell new creators, if you're getting haters, that's a good thing. It shows you're doing something right. Because if you please everyone, that means you're not really saying anything of substance and value, because when you talk about something that is of substance and value and true, it elicits hatred from a lot of people because you're exposing that which they don't want to be exposed to. You are shaking their world up, and when you shake their world up, they get angry, right? Progressive people, when you shake their world up, they look towards answers. Regressive individuals, when you shake their world up, they attack, right? They're hateful. Okay. So we're looking for, progressive individuals, and Hyperianism is composed of progressive individuals, when they're exposed to new information, they update their operating systems, right? When you're exposed to new information, the progressive thing to do is update your operating system, not be like, fuck you, I'm staying with my old operating system and I hate you. Okay, anyway. So everything is frequency. It's just a matter of degree. And people don't realize that. You need to break yourself out of the human game and the deceptive senses. I always use my glass of water because that's just what I have here. This is nothing but a complex of frequency. Vibrations. That's all it is. And this is actually not super controversial. Modern physics agrees with this. It's just that we go a step further than modern physics, because modern physics goes, well, everything is frequency, but we don't really know why or how or what that means. And we show that, guess what? We can define what frequency is. Frequency is mind. And by using Fourier transforms, we can show how mind is transformed into space-time information. We can solve substance dualism. We can solve all the philosophical problems eating at the heart of the so-called intellectual world. By showing that this is a mental, mathematical world, all these problems can be resolved. Okay, so the scale of color is the same, higher and lower vibrations, being the only difference between high violet and low red. Large and small are relative, so are noise and quiet. Hard and soft follow the rule. Likewise, sharp and dull. Positive and negative are two poles of the same thing, with countless degrees between them. Good and bad are not absolute. We call one end of the scale good and the other bad, or one end good and the other evil, according to the use of the terms. A thing is less good than the thing higher in the scale, but that less good thing in turn is more good than the thing next below it, and so on, the more or less being regulated by the position on the scale. So here we can see that good and bad are not absolute. That's why we say objective morality does not exist. Remember, if we look in terms of duality, there is no this thing is good and this thing is bad. So in Hyperianism, what is good and bad? In Hyperianism, good and bad is easily defined. Good is that which moves us closer to symmetry, unity, and harmony. The thing that moves us closer to individual and collective actualization. And what is bad is that which moves us further away from unity, harmony, and synchronization. But you see, that's what's good and bad. Good is what moves us closer to. Bad is what moves us further from. But what those things are depends on the situation. It depends on the situation. There aren't a set of unchanging right and wrong rules. Okay. And so it is on the mental plane. Love and hate are generally regarded as being things diametrically opposed to each other, entirely different, unreconcilable. But we apply the principle of polarity. We find that there is no such thing as absolute love or absolute hate, as distinguished from each other. The two are merely terms applied to the poles of the same thing. Being at any point of the scale, we find more love or less hate. As we ascend the scale, and more hate or less love as we descend this. Being true no matter from what point, high or low, we may start. There are degrees of love and hate, and there is a middle point where like and dislike become so faint that it is difficult to distinguish between them. Courage and fear come under the same rule. The pairs of opposites exist everywhere. Where you find one thing, you find its opposite, the two poles. Jenny Flirt, thank you for helping us wake up the world. Jenny Flirt says, the negative trolls are just the polarity to the light you are bringing. Thank you for not giving up. Yeah, it's an astute observation. Astute observation. They are the just a part of a causal chain. They are the reaction to our action. Thank you, Jenny. Okay. So here we're talking about love and hate. And I want you to put, so in terms of Hyperianism, what can we think of love and hate? Well, we can think of love as being a unifying function, and as hate as being a separating function. So what is love? Love is a function that is unifying. Hate is a function that is separating. And so also, if we look in terms of the evolution of the universe, so here's a diagram, a very simplistic diagram that we can use to look at the evolution of the universe. If we look at this as the beginning, here we have unity, and then we have a time of separation. And this time of separation could be thought of as, hatred. If we're looking at hatred as separation and we're tying it into evolution, this is a time of involution and separation. And then you reach a point where we reach maximum separation. Then we begin a march towards unity, towards perfection, towards evolution, towards the final cause, which we also call the omega point. The final cause, the omega point. And Empedocles is a ancient Greek philosopher who is extremely intelligent. BRD, thank you for helping us wake up the world. You are awesome, my friend. Empedocles is a highly intelligent philosopher. And you can ancient Greek philosopher, and you can look at his philosophy as being an early form of Hyperianism. So he was the first to come up with the four-element theory, being earth, air, wind, and fire. And, I'm sure you've heard of that, earth, air, wind, and fire, the four elements. And so but back then, this was extremely interesting. This was early atomic theory, really. Everyone else was like, well, what is reality made of? And he's like, hey, it's made out of elements. And there's four of them, and everything is a mixture of these four elements. Very basic, but then he also said that, okay, so his conception was that physical reality was composed of the four elements, but that they were governed by two forces. The forces of unity and separation, or the forces of love and hate, right? So he equated with love as being unity and hatred being separation. So he said that all reality was that physical reality rather was the four forces. The four elements. And these four elements were guided by two forces, unity and separation, or love and hate. And this is our diagram, but let's take a look at Empedocles. Empedocles had a conception of reality that's very similar. And let's blow this up so you can see this a little bit better. So here we would have, it's a cyclical, right? It's a cyclical setup. So here you have a pure domain of strife or hate, which is chaos. Life is not present. Now, why would we say that life is not present? Well, we would be talking about physical life. And we would be saying that reality is basically in such a disorganized state at this moment that there are no viable avatars. In the physical domain, there are no viable avatars for a mind to link to. And then, so as you evolve and go further and further, then we have a contention between strife and love, or between love and hate. And we could look at that, in our diagram over here being this midway point. And then you do have a presence of life. And why? Well, that's because reality has organized itself to create avatars, single-celled organisms, things like this, for minds to begin to link to. And then we go, strong, higher and higher in the chain until perfection, the omega point, the final cause. And Empedocles' system, this would be the pure domain of love, where there is no more hatred present. And it says life not present, but what this would mean in terms of Hyperianism is it means that the physical domain would no longer be present, and everything would exist in a domain of pure mind. Well, why is that? Because the physical domain is actually a domain of separation, right? If I am here in my body and you're here in your body, that's a form of separation. There's separation happening here. So in a perfect domain of pure love, the physical domain would actually cease to exist, the holos would vanish, and there would be no physical holos avatars anymore, as we exist in a domain of pure love. But mathematically, this is pure symmetry, pure unity. Okay? Mathematically speaking, we would say all the sinusoidal waveforms have gone from out of phase to in phase, perfectly symmetrical. Empedocles is an amazing philosopher, by the way, very important to Hyperianism, and had a very, very interesting life. He actually, at the end of his life, traveled up to a volcano, declared himself to be God, essentially, and threw himself into a volcano. He said that he was an incarnation of a daemon, a highly evolved mind. So Empedocles essentially, was saying that he's a highly evolved mind traveling up the chain of being, and that he linked to this to an avatar, the avatar of Empedocles, to impart this knowledge. A very, very interesting philosopher indeed, and very important to Hyperianism. We may talk about Empedocles. There's some anyway, I don't want to get ahead of myself, but there's some very, very interesting information regarding Empedocles that perhaps in the future I will elaborate on. So one thing I want to say, though, right, that's very important to understand about this idea about love and hate and unity and separation is that, yes, we want to let's say we're somewhere around here in our evolutionary scale. Well, we're aiming towards to increase love. But really, mathematically, this is an increase in symmetry and increase in unity. Now, does that mean that we should just love everyone? Now, that's very naive. It would be naive to think, well, we want to increase unity, we want to increase harmony, we want to increase this, so let's just love everyone. No. That doesn't work, because this is Karl Popper's paradox of tolerance. If you love everyone, including the hateful, then the hateful will allow to breed their hatred, and the net result will result in more hatred. So the thing is that if you love everyone, you actually that will result in there being more hatred, because you will love those who hate, and then the hate will be allowed to spread their hatred. We can also liken this to the current pandemic. If we want to heal, we don't want to embrace the virus, right? We want to separate from it. That's why, the whole social distancing thing and everything, right? This is a very simplistic example, but you can understand that it doesn't matter how much we, love a virus, that's not going to help the situation. So yes, we are aiming for an increase in symmetry, but it does not mean that we just want to love everyone no matter what, because if we love the hatred, the hateful will spread their hatred, and it will have a net result of being an increase of hatred. Remember, love is a unifying function, hate is a separating function. And we are given these unifying and separating functions to be able to build a better world. So we must separate from the hateful, right? If you got, crazy, hateful neo-Nazis and things like that, we don't want to be, if we're building a new society, we don't want to be like, oh yeah, let's embrace all the neo-Nazis. No. Right? They need to, we need to separate ourselves from them, or else they would infect our society, and there would be a result of breeding hatred. So hopefully that makes sense. To say, the main point is, yes, we're moving towards more unity, but we don't want to just love everyone. All right, because loving everyone actually brings us away from unity. We have to be smart. That's why we must always be guided by logic and reason. Okay? This is why we must be guided by logic and reason. We have the powers of unity and separation within us, but we must guide them by logic and reason to know when to apply unity and when to apply separation, because there's a time and a place for everything. We apply unity when it's appropriate. We apply separation when it's appropriate. Michael Andrews, thank you for helping us wake up the world. Oh, thank you, Michael. Michael says, this is collegiate level stuff, guys. He knows his stuff. Mad love. Hit like. Thank you. I appreciate that. Thank you for recognizing that, Michael. That means a lot to me. This, as the Kybalion even says, this is for those with the eyes to see and the ears to hear. Those who don't have them will understand. So thank you, my friend. And yeah, Michael says to hit like. So I agree with Michael. That's very good advice. Do indeed hit that like button. And once again, if you are watching on Facebook, get your cyber asses over to YouTube and subscribe. Help us reach 100,000 likes. 100,000 subscribers, rather. 100,000 likes, that'd be good. That'd be good. Sure, let's do that. Okay. So that is the important thing to remember with love and hate. Okay? We have the powers of unity and separation within us. And we must not deny either. They are our tools. Okay? They are our tools, like a sword and a shield. We must use logic and reason to know when to apply either one. Okay? Very important. Very important. This is why we are always guided by logic and reason. Because you can go very, very wrong, right? I mean, like, look, Hitler loved his dog, but hated many races, Obviously, he was not using logic and reason. So you can see how we have to be very, very, very careful. Love, and you see, the things are not objectively a certain way. You have to know how to apply them. Or else you could have, terrible situations arise that we're seeing arise in the world. Amanda Wisely and Mike Hoover, thank you for helping us wake up the world. Let's see. Mike Hoover says, Sir Isaac Newton would be digging our studies. And Amanda says, loving the content. Is it possible that you might have been Heraclitus in a past lifetime? Well, Amanda, very interesting question indeed. The thing is, at the moment, I don't want to publicly discuss my personal details, such as chain of incarnations and things like that. I don't want to discuss that right now. And the reason being is because that sort of information can be easily misinterpreted. The so-called logical and rational might interpret it as being crazy, and then those who are just purely intuitive might run with it into a crazy direction. So that is perhaps something that I'll discuss in the future. But as of right now, I simply choose not to, because it would result in so much confusion and people misunderstanding and misinterpreting. So in the future, I want to talk a lot more about what past lives are, what incarnations are, memory, symbolism, metaphor, using certain mental constructs to shape the world and things like that. So it's a very good question, but there's a lot I want to talk about before I answer such questions, to avoid confusion and distortion. I mean, look what happened when when Jesus claimed to be the Son of God, right? Like, the world lost its shit. People just don't it's hard for so much distortion and whatnot occurs, and harmful religions can be born of certain things. So, good question, but for another time, perhaps. Okay, so, and it is this fact that enables the Hermetist to transmute one mental state into another, along the lines of polarization. Things belong to different classes, cannot be transmuted into each other, but things of the same class may be changed. That is, may have the polarity change. Thus, love never becomes east or west, or red or violet, but it may and often does turn into hate. And likewise, hate may be transformed into love by changing its polarity. Courage may be transmuted into fear, and the reverse. Hard things may be rendered soft, dull things become sharp, hot things become cold, and so on. Transmutation always being between things of the same kind of different degrees. Take the case of a fearful man. By raising his mental vibrations along the line of fear, courage, he can be filled with the highest degree. Along the lines of fear, courage, he can be filled with the highest degree of courage and fearlessness. And likewise, the slothful man may change himself into an active, energetic individual simply by polarizing along the lines of the desired quality. So basically it's saying that if you understand the law of polarity, then you can understand that you can change one form of one thing into another. So if you think that two things are separate, right? If you think that hot is one thing and cold is another, and they're two dual separate things, well, you could never change hot into cold because they're two separate things. But if you understand that they're two ends of the same thing, well, yeah, by adjusting and sliding, you can transform cold into hot. And they're saying if you understand that about mental states, such as fear and courage, then you, by understanding polarity, you can realize that you can change fear into courage. If fear and courage were two separate things, right, and you thought, oh man, I'm just a fearful individual, and that's it. I'm screwed. I can never change. But if you understand that fear is just one end of a pole between fear and courage, then you can realize that fear can be transformed through applying will and understanding. You can and hard work, you can transform being a fearful person into a courageous person. And I've done this so much. This is mental transmutation. This is mental alchemy. Now you can see why alchemy is a metaphor of changing lead into gold, a very basic form of metal into a very pure form of metal, right? That's why alchemy is the metaphor for, changing a lower thing into a higher thing, a not so good thing into a better thing, something like that. And I've done this a lot in my life. As you guys know, I'm a stunt performer. I've done a lot of things with needles and pain. So looking into transforming pleasure into pain. Don't hurt yourself. I do not, stay safe. Don't hurt yourself. I do not advocate self-harm. But I'm just saying my own experience. Also a fear into courage. Fear of, I had an intense phobia of public speaking. But now I don't. I'm actually extremely comfortable in front of crowds. I enjoy being in front of crowds. So that's again, this whole idea of transforming, pleasure, pain into pleasure, fear into courage. This can be done when you understand that one thing may be transformed into another. If you have this idea that everything is separate, that can't happen. And this is what physics needs to catch up and realize this, by realizing that mind can be transformed into matter. All right, this is what physics needs to do to update itself, to understand the true nature of reality, is realizing that everything around us that we perceive as matter is simply frequency. And they understand, modern physics understands that it's frequency, but it hasn't yet made the leap to understand that frequency is mind. However, some physicists have understood this, such as Max Planck, famous for Planck's constant. The founder of quantum physics said that mind is the matrix of all matter. Schrödinger, also famous for Schrödinger's wave equation, also looked at this reality as being a shared dream. and is consciousness as being fundamental. It's actually mind, not consciousness, that's fundamental, but he was very close. So the founders of quantum mechanics, you go try and learn about quantum mechanics, the first thing you'll be taught is Schrodinger's equation and then Planck's constant. And Schrodinger looked at consciousness as being fundamental and is this reality being a dream. And Planck looked at this, said that mind is the matrix of all matter. And it's hilarious that the founders of quantum mechanics, such that their equations and constants are the first thing that you are taught, but most modern physicists don't even think about that. They completely reject this idea, which is so stupid. Which is so naive, but it's because they've been brainwashed into believing that this world is physical. Max Planck said a new scientific truth does not triumph by convincing its opponents that it's right and having them see the light, but because they eventually die and a new generation grows up with it. So basically, Max Planck was saying that the scientific establishment is brainwashed, doesn't listen to logic and reason, that the only way a new scientific truth triumphs is when the old generation dies and a new generation grows up. So it's very, very important to understand that the materialist conception of reality is a modern day religion. The idea that atoms are solid things, right? That's a mythos. That's going to be looked at as silly as a creator god. In the future, atoms and molecules being real physical things is going to be looked at as ridiculous as a creator god and Zeus and things like that. Mike Hoover, thank you for helping us wake up the world. And Michael Andrews, thank you as well. The student who is familiar with the processes by which the various schools of mental science, etc., produce changes in the mental states of those following their teachings may not readily understand the principles underlying many of these changes. When, however, the principle of polarity is once grasped, and it's seen that the mental changes are occasioned by a change of polarity, a sliding along the same scale, that latter, I believe they mean to say, is readily understood. The change is not in the nature of a transmutation of one thing into another thing entirely different, but merely a change of degree in the same thing, a vastly important difference. So it's not one entirely new thing being transformed into another entirely new thing. It's a sliding on a scale. Michael Andrews, thank you so much for helping us wake up the world. I am actually a Taurus, but my view on astrology is very, 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 very different. So please, don't think that I believe in astrology as the average person does. Astrology are basically archetypes. And it's very, very funny because I actually do not relate to the Taurus archetype as well. I'm about as far as you can possibly get from a Taurus. I'll have to do a whole video on that at some point. And yes, that means it's my birthday quite soon. Quite soon it will be my birthday. But anyway, yeah, just like alchemy isn't actually alchemy, it's a metaphor for something else entirely. That's also how I view astrology. It's a metaphor for archetypes that's completely different from how people conceive it. But I'll get into that at a later time. Okay, so it's not, one thing being transformed into a completely new thing. It's the sliding of a scale. For instance, borrowing an analogy from the physical plane, it is impossible to change heat into sharpness, loudness, or highness, but heat may readily be transmuted into cold simply by lowering the vibrations. In the same way, hate and love are mutually transmutable, so are fear and courage, but fear cannot be transformed into love, nor can courage be transmuted into hate. The mental states belong to innumerable classes, each class of which has its opposite poles along which transmutation is possible. In Hyperianism and Ontological Mathematics, we know that everything is a product of the source formula. And this is the source formula, and you can see this is all of reality can be reduced to this one equation. And you can see within this one equation, you have the highs and the lows, transmutation from one thing to another. You have a sine and a cosine wave, which respectively relates to symmetry and asymmetry. And then you have the cyclical nature of reality. Literally all things are contained within this. And everything you experience, it's just different combinations of these basic waveforms. These basic waveforms, you can construct literally everything. Literally everything. Whether it's red, whether it's blue, whether it's water, whether it's your experience of love, whether it's your experience of hatred, whether it's the prick of a needle, whether it's the center of a black hole, whether it's the heat of a star, all of it, there is no exception to this, can be expressed in terms of combinations of these basic waveforms generated by the source formula, Euler's formula, also known as the God equation or the soul formula. We often refer to it as the source formula, but it does have multiple names. Okay. The student will readily recognize that in the mental states, as well as in the phenomena of the physical plane, the two poles may be classified as positive and negative, respectively. Thus, love is positive to hate, courage to fear, activity to non-activity, etc. And it will also be noticed that even to those unfamiliar with the principle of vibration, the positive poles seem to be of a higher degree than the negative, and readily dominates it. The tendency of nature is in the direction of the positive pole. In addition to the changing of poles of one's own mental states by the operation of the art of polarization, the phenomena of mental influence in its manifold phases shows us that the principle may be extended so as to embrace the phenomena of the influence of one mind over that of another, of which so much has been written and taught of late years. When it is understood that mental induction is possible, that is, that mental states may be produced by induction from others, then we can readily see how a certain rate of vibration or polarization of a certain mental state may be communicated to another person, and his polarity in that class of mental states thus changed. It is along this principle that the results of many of the mental treatments are obtained. For instance, a person is blue, melancholy, and full of fear. A mental scientist, bringing his own mind up to the desired vibration by his trained will, and thus obtaining the desired polarization in his own case, then produces a similar mental state in the other by induction. The result being that the vibrations are raised and the person polarizes towards the positive end of the scale instead toward the negative, and his fear and other negative emotions are transmuted into courage and similar positive mental states. A little study will show you that these mental states are nearly all along the line of polarization, the change being one of degree rather than of kind. Now, I'm going to say something about that in just a moment. A knowledge of the existence of this great Hermetic principle will enable the student to better understand his own mental states and those of other people. He will see that these states are all matters of degree, and seeing thus, he will be able to raise or lower the vibration at will to change his mental poles and thus be master of his mental states instead of being their servant and slave. And by his knowledge, he will be able to aid his fellows intelligently and by the appropriate methods change the polarity when the same is desirable. We advise all students to familiarize themselves with this principle of polarity, For a correct understanding of the same will throw light on many difficult subjects. So basically, okay, for one thing here, there's a couple things we're going to unpack here. For one thing, it is saying that when you understand the principle of polarity, you are no longer ruled by your emotions and your nature, but you realize that you can change your nature. If you don't understand polarity, you think, oh man, I'm just a fearful person. That's how I am. That's all I'm ever going to be. But if you understand the law of polarity, thus that things can be changed, you realize that you can change your nature. Thus you can have master over yourself and master over your emotions. So do you see how like the animal is ruled by their emotions, and an animalistic person, a person who is on the low end of the consciousness scale, will also be ruled by their emotions, because they won't have, for one thing, the strength of will to be able to change, and also they won't know that they have the capability of changing. If you don't understand that you can change, you think you're just stuck the way that you are, right? But no, we aren't stuck the way that we are. We can change it, and that's why it's important to understand that things can be transmuted, things can be changed. Also, this is our goal of Hyperianism, is to wake up the world, right? We are engaged in a war of the mind, where many minds who are on the side of fracture and division and separation are trying to lower the consciousness of the world, whereas we are trying to raise the consciousness of the world. We realize that consciousness can be raised, and that is our mission as Hyperians, to wake up the world, to raise the consciousness of the world and reach the next level of evolution. And by understanding that consciousness can indeed be raised, we understand that we can do that. And when we encounter individuals, we will either raise their consciousness by imparting knowledge and information to them, or we will get a visceral response, a negative, fearful response from those who can't handle this information and are afraid of the new and are afraid of change. Do you see the difference here? So it is our mission to raise the consciousness of the minds of this world. And this is why it's important to understand stuff like this. But it's very important to realize that. And I also want to, we're going to go to the next chapter here. But before we do, I want to share with you a quote by Empedocles. I just forgot to share it, but it's a very great quote. Empedocles, fantastic. There are forces in nature called love and hate. The force of love causes elements to be attracted to each other and built up into some particular form or person, and the force of hate causes the decomposition of things. So you see how Empedocles looked at love and hate in terms of forces, that it's attraction and repulsion, or fracture and unity, harmony and division. Oh man, Scullywag, thank you so much. Donated $50. Thank you so much, my friend. You get a color change. Wow, you're awesome. Guys, spam the Triscale emoji in the comments for Scullywag. You're awesome, my friend. I appreciate that. Thank you so much. What did Scullywag say here? Let me look and see. You're fantastic, my friend. Thank you so much. I appreciate that. You guys in the comments, yeah, let's spam some Triscale emojis for Scullywag. Let's see that. Yeah, there we go. Awesome. So I really appreciate that, Scullywag. Okay. Seriously, big shout out to everyone. Oh, cool. Yeah, you got the top donor down here. Remember, guys, if you are on Facebook, please go over to YouTube and subscribe on YouTube. Our goal is to hit 100,000 subscribers. And we're so close to our goal, so please go do that right now. And this is where I'm interacting with people in the comments on YouTube. So come on over, guys. And smash that like button as well. Michael Andrews, thank you for helping us wake up the world. Okay, so we are going to head over to the next chapter in just a moment. I just want to... I usually take a quick comment break in between chapters here. I came here for the Kybalion, and I'm staying for every time Morgue takes a drink of water and wipes his lips with his thumb. You guys are perverts. You guys are perverted, and I love it. Tanya, thank you for helping us wake up the world. Elise, yeah, that works too. Hit those party emojis. Okay, my friends. So guess what? I have to take a piss. So I'm going to take a piss break, and then we're going to move on to the next chapter. Again, really, really important here. And while I'm gone, hey, guess what? You guys on Facebook, while I'm gone, go over to YouTube and smash like, all right? Smash like for, I don't know. Transmute the like button. Oh, Sky Love. All right, I'm going. But Sky Love says, thank you. Wish this could be more. Oh, that means a lot to me. Thank you for helping us wake up the world. All right, let's do BRB. Hello, everyone. I have returned. By the way, guys, if you are on Facebook and you go over to YouTube, let me know in the comments that you are a Facebook convert so that I can shout you out. Okay? So all right, we're going to move on to the next chapter. Hello, everyone. We're about to move on to the next chapter. And... before I do... Oh, by the way, guys, if you haven't seen my latest video about Mubarak Bala, definitely check it out. My latest video about this guy who in Nigeria is being, probably sentenced to death for blasphemy in Nigeria, which is really crazy. So I'm going to keep you guys updated on that. Fingers crossed that everything goes well. With that, if you don't know what I'm talking about, make sure you check out my latest video after this. But I want to keep you guys updated. I'll be keeping you guys updated on that in the live streams as I get information. I agree, Jordy. Facebook, who's Facebook? Dave and AMF are Facebook converts. Shout out. Shout out. What are our likes at? Our likes are at 156. Smash that like button, guys. Okay, so we are going to continue with our reading. Wow, why are we so blue? Why is the tri-scale blue? No. Okay. One blue, one red. That's what I feel like. Yeah, there's 150 of you guys on Facebook. You guys on Facebook, go over to YouTube. The link to the YouTube is pinned in the comment, or it's in the description. Okay, so let's continue our reading. Let's get this back on screen here. Wandering Star, thank you for helping us wake up the world. You have unlocked loyalty badges. Okay, next chapter, Rhythm. Everything flows out and in. Everything has its tide. All things rise and fall. The pendulum swing manifests in everything. The measure of the swing to the right is the measure of the swing to the left. Rhythm compensates. And for those of you who may be new and just joining us, remember how sort of the whole point of this is to show how every single one of the Hermetic laws is really just one law derived from the source formula and can be much better understood. So you see how we already saw polarity. Polarity is in the source formula, right? Look, just focus on look at this blue dot right here. It's going up and down, right? The different poles, right? From positive to negative. That's polarity. And now we're talking about rhythm. Everything flows out and in. Everything has its tides. All things rise and fall. You can see this again with the source formula. The reason why the Hermetists even understood this information is because they were recognizing that reality follows a pattern. Why does reality follow this pattern? Because literally everything is derivable from the source formula. This is the formula of mind. This shows mental waves, sinusoidal waves of mind, all equal to net zero of zero dimensionality. All right, this is literally the one equation, e to the ix equals cosine x plus I sine x, the one equation that explains all of existence, the governing equation of reality, the void equation, the source formula, the God equation. It is explains everything. Okay. The great fifth Hermetic principle, the principle of rhythm, embodies the truth that in everything there is manifested a measure of motion, a to and from movement, a flow and inflow, a swing forward and backward, a pendulum-like movement, a tide-like ebb and flow, a high tide and a low tide. Between the two poles manifest on the physical, mental, or spiritual plane. The principle of rhythm is closely connected with the principle of polarity described in the previous chapter, right? Rhythm and polarity are very closely related. You can see that in the source formula. This does not mean, however, that the pendulum of rhythm swings to the extreme poles, for this rarely happens. In fact, it is difficult to establish the extreme polar opposites in the majority of cases. But the swing is ever towards first one pole and then the other. There was a comment I was going to make that's important here. What was it? What was it? Oh, that's going to bother me. There was something. Okay, I remember what it was, but it had to do with love and hate. But we are okay. I'm just going to continue because man, there's so much. Oh, XGen23, thank you for helping us wake up the world. I appreciate that. Okay. Man, I know we need to keep reading. It's just, there's so much to unpack. And there's so much room for distortion and misunderstanding that really we could just pick like one of these chapters and just spend 3 hours talking about it. But I'm going to force myself to move on because I know Jordy will get very mad at me if I do not. Okay. There is always an action and reaction, an advance and a retreat, a rising and sinking, manifested in all of the airs and phenomena of the universe, suns, worlds, men, animals, plants, minerals, forces, energy, mind, and matter. Yes, even spirit manifests this principle. The principle manifests in the creation and destruction of the worlds, in the rise and the fall of nations, in the life and history of all things, and finally in the mental states of man. And that's absolutely true. Everything follows a cycle. Everything has a rising and falling. And even in the destruction and creation of worlds, as we talk about when we reach the omega point, the final cause, the end of everything, it will result in the beginning of a new cosmic cycle, the birth of a new universe, the birth of a new dream world and a new story. This is an eternal cyclical world, which like the Stoic philosophers realized that the philosophers of Stoicism said that the world was born in fire and then consumed by fire, and this would happen again and again, this birth by fire and consumption of fire. And you can look at fire as meaning like energy and in archaic sort of terminology. And so basically what this is saying is that everything is in motion and everything is in movement. And as we can see by the source formula, everything is indeed constantly in flux and constantly in movement. And this is where the philosopher Heraclitus said that everything is in constant movement. Heraclitus said that the substance of reality was fire. The reason why he said fire was because fire is always in motion. So Heraclitus said that all of reality is constantly changing. There is nothing that is not changing. Now, Parmenides was another pre-Socratic philosopher who said the exact opposite. Parmenides said that all of reality is actually unchanging. All of reality is actually stillness, and that change is merely an illusion. So what does Hyperianism say? Well, Hyperianism says that everything is in constant motion, everything is in constant change, except for one thing. And that is the laws of mathematics. So you can see the waves, reality is composed of motion, of frequency patterns. But the one thing that does not change is the laws of mathematics itself, right? 2 plus 2 always equals 4. 2 plus 2 will always equal 4. 2 plus 2 will never equal 5. 2 plus 2 will never equal -7. 2 plus 2 will never equal anything other than 4. So the laws of mathematics are unchanging. But the result, the life that emanates and that is a reflection of those laws is constant change, constant motion, constant flux. Now, I will say, however, there's one stipulation, an addendum to that, and that is that you can't, from a certain perspective, you could say that the waves of the source are unchanging. That the basis waves of the source are unchanging. However, that starts to get really, really complicated, and we would have to delve into really complex ontological mathematics to unpack it. So I'm not even going to comment on that because it's just too complex for this particular stream. However, in a nutshell, simplistically, we can understand that all of reality is constant change, constant motion, as we can see by the source formula, but the only thing that does not change is the laws of mathematics, the laws of thought. 2 plus 2 will always equal 4, and whatnot. White Rabbit, thank you so much for helping us wake up the world. Hello, White Rabbit. Thank you for, good to see you, by the way. And I'm glad that you are enjoying The Promised Neverland. That's an anime, by the way. It's a very good anime, and I recommended it to White Rabbit. And I recommend it to you all as well. If you enjoy that sort of thing, it's a good one. Okay, continuing. Beginning with the manifestations of spirit, we can understand, remember, spirit as mind, the manifestations of mind, of the all. It will be noticed that there is an outpouring and the indrawing, the outbreathing and the inbreathing of Brahm. And the Brahmins, as the Brahmins word it, universes are created, reach their extreme low point of materiality, and then begin their upward swing. And of course, we can see this in this diagram. Let me make it a bit smaller. You can see the outpouring and then the inpouring, or the indrawing, right? The outpouring and then the indrawing. You see how this is all super metaphorical. Super metaphorical for mathematical processes. These are all mathematical processes. But yeah, you can talk about the outward breathing and the inhaling, right? The exhaling and the inhaling. But you see where it goes very, very wrong is when people start taking this literally. And it was like, oh my God, there was this deity that breathed life into the world. You see how we have to be careful when we use metaphor? We always have to recognize when metaphor is metaphor. And this is where modern physics has befallen this trap, because modern physics doesn't understand that atoms and molecules and electrons are actually metaphors. They take these things as being self-existent, right? But atoms, molecules, electrons are going to be looked at as ridiculous as, like, angels and demons and sprites. Atoms, molecules, and electrons are just picture stories, myths that we tell us for what they really are. What they really are just frequency combinations, mathematical combinations. An electron is a certain combination of mathematical frequency. An atom is a certain combination of mathematical frequency. That's all it is. An atom is simply a combination of mathematical frequency. By calling it an atom and drawing a little circle and be like, oh, an atom looks like this, that's all a story. That's all a metaphor. It doesn't actually exist. It's just mathematical frequency. And materialists have such a hard time understanding this. It is a mythos. It is a fantasy. It is a molecules, atoms, electrons are just as much of a fantasy and picture thinking and a metaphor like religions. It is all just mathematical information, frequency patterns, combinations of mathematical waveforms. Okay. Suns spring into being, and then their height of power being reached, the process of retrogression begins, and after eons they become dead masses of matter, awaiting another impulse which starts again their inner energies into activity, and a new solar life cycle is begun. And thus it is with all the worlds. They are born, grow, and die, only to be reborn. And thus it is with all the things of shape and form. They swing from action to reaction, from birth to death, from activity to inactivity, and then back again. Thus it is with all living things. They are born, grow, and die, and then are reborn. So it is with all great movements and philosophies, creeds, fashions, governments, nations, and all else. Growth, maturity, birth, decadence, death, and then new birth. The swing of the pendulum is ever in evidence. So once again, everything is in cycles. Everything are in ebbs and flows. Everything. Even life and birth. That's why I say we need to end the stigma with death. Death is just a rest between life cycles. Okay? Just like sleep is just a rest between day cycles. Day and night. Night follows day, and day night. The pendulum swings from summer to winter, and then back again. The corpuscles, atoms, molecules, and all their masses of matter swing around the circle of their nature. This is a little outdated. That's not exactly how we know it to work, but close enough, okay? There's no such thing as absolute rest or cessation from movement, and all movement partakes of rhythm. The principle is of universal application. It may be applied to any question or phenomena of any of the many planes of life. It may be applied to all phases of human activity. There is always the rhythmic swing from one pole to the other. The universal pendulum is ever in motion. The tides of life flow in and out according to law. The principle of rhythm is well understood by modern science and is considered a universal law as applied to material things. But the Hermetists carry the principle much further and know that its manifestations and influence extend to the mental activities of man, and that it accounts for the bewildering succession of moods, feelings, and other annoying and perplexing changes that we notice in ourselves. But the Hermetists, by studying the operation of this principle, have learned to escape some of its activities by transmutation. The Hermetic masters long since discovered that while the principle of rhythm was invariable and ever in evidence in mental phenomena, still there were two planes of its manifestation so far as mental phenomena are concerned. You can look at this as, sort of like the manic and depressive stages of bipolar too. Very, very interesting. They discovered that there were two general planes of consciousness, the lower and the higher, the understanding of which fact enabled them to rise to the higher plane and thus escape the swing of the rhythmic pendulum which manifested on the lower plane. In other words, the swing of the pendulum occurred on the unconscious plane, and the consciousness was not affected. This they call the law of neutralization. Its operations. Mike Hoover, thank you for helping us wake up the world. Mike Hoover said, Morgue is the fifth element. Well, I'm not sure you said either. Morgue, question, fifth element either. Question. I'm not sure what you're asking, my friend. Are you asking about the ether? If you're asking about the ether, so the ether is a concept that was dismissed by modern physics. In Hyperianism, the ether is light or mind. Actually, if you want to know more about our position on that, watch the last video in the Kybalion. In the last video, I talked a lot about the ether and how it relates to light and mind. So if that's what you're asking, I'm not sure if you are or not, watch the video right previous to this one in the series, as we discuss light being the absolute reference frame of existence. Its operations consist in the raising of the ego above the vibrations of the unconscious plane of mental activity so that the negative swing of the pendulum is not manifested in consciousness, and therefore they are not affected. It is akin to rising above a thing and letting it pass beneath you. Jonathan, thank you for helping us wake up the world. You've unlocked loyalty badges. The Hermetic master, or advanced student, polarizes himself at the desired pole, and by a process akin to refusing to participate in the backward swing, or if you prefer a denial of its influence over him, he stands firm in his polarized position and allows the mental pendulum to swing back along the unconscious plane. All individuals who have attained any degree of self-mastery accomplish this more or less unknowingly, and by refusing to allow their moods and negative mental states to affect them, they apply the law of neutralization. So basically, by understanding this, you can have mastery over it. Guess what? Like when you have bipolar disorder and understand that there are manic and depressive phases, you can take steps to realize, I'm just going through a manic phase right now, or I'm just going through a depressive phase right now, and you can work with it and take steps to try and help, rather than if you didn't know this, you would just, if you didn't know what was going on, you would just be like, oh wow, I'm really depressed right now, I don't know why, I'm just fucking sad, and then I feel great right now, I don't know why, I just feel this way. But when you understand, you can begin to help, right? You can begin to help. And we can, so basically by saying, I'm using that as an extreme example, but you can apply this to a lot of things. When you understand the principle of rhythm, you can begin to work with it, to have it work with you, or to, like again, the ebb and flow of the tides. Well, if you don't understand how it works, you can let the flow take you, and it will direct you. But by understanding that there is an ebb and a flow, well, guess what? You can either swim with it or you can swim against it. You can start using your will and consciousness to direct things yourself. And by refusing to allow their moods and negative mental states to affect them, they apply the law of neutralization. The master, however, carries this to a much higher degree of proficiency, and by the use of his will is so important, guys. Please know how important will is. In most of these esoteric mystery schools, it was all about a grueling process of honing your will. And all this like law of attraction and the secret stuff, they completely cut out the will. Guess what? Because honing your will is hard. It's difficult work. But everyone just wants to be like, oh, if I just visualize getting money, I'll get checks in the mail. No. You have to apply your will and hard work and dedication. Angela Ducat, thank you so much for helping us wake up the world. Angela says, anything to help you make more excellent videos. Thank you, Angela. The master, however, carries this to a much higher degree of proficiency, and by the use of his will, always remember how important that is, he attains a degree of poise and mental firmness. Do you see how it's about evolving? It's becoming a master. It's about becoming a living archetype. It's about becoming a world shaper. This is the philosophy for the strong, for becoming a master. It's not for the weak who are like, oh, I just want, to think happy thoughts and then my life will be better. If I just visualize money, I'll get lots of money. No. This is not about like the easy way or the shortcut. This is about reaching the next step of your evolution, becoming a master of yourself, becoming a master of reality, reaching godhood, understanding what it means to be a world shaper, to transform yourself into a living archetype. What does it mean to become a living archetype? It means that you aren't just governed by inner archetypes, but rather your will is so strong that you yourself are an archetype, and you direct and influence the world and minds around you. You aren't a force that is shaped, but you are a shaping force. That's what it means. That's what it means. You aren't moved by the hurricane, you become the hurricane. You aren't struck by lightning, you are the lightning. You are the striking force. You are the earthquake. That's what this truly means. This is not a shortcut. This is not the easy path. This is about becoming that living archetype. Becoming a force of direction. Okay. So this is so important to grasp. The importance of this will be appreciated by any thinking person who realizes what creatures of moods, feelings, and emotion the majority of people are, and how little mastery of themselves they manifest. This is what in Hyperianism we call them the ignavi, the sleepwalkers. They have no mastery of themselves. They have no mastery of their emotions. They are completely directed by their emotions. They are completely governed by their unconscious inner archetypes. They have no autonomy. They have no free will. They are completely governed by others, by their emotions, by forces beyond their control. If you will stop and consider a moment, you will realize how much these swings of rhythm have affected you in your life. Pandora, thank you so much for helping us wake up the world. If you will stop and consider a moment, you will realize how much these swings of rhythm have affected your life, how a period of enthusiasm has invariably been followed by an opposite feeling and mood of depression. Likewise, your moods and periods of courage have been succeeded by equal moods of fear, and so it has ever been with the majority of persons. Tides of feelings have risen and fallen with them, but they have never suspected the cause or reason of the mental phenomena. This is why understanding the way the world works is so important. This is why placing logic and a reason above all is so important. An understanding of the workings of this principle will give one the key to the mastery of these rhythmic swings of feelings and will enable him to know himself better and to avoid being carried away by these inflows and outflows. The Delphic maxim, know thyself. Know thyself and you will know the universe and the gods. Know thyself, you will know the forces that direct all things. You will realize that you have the power to control these forces. The will is superior to the conscious manifestation of this principle. Although the principle itself can never be destroyed, we may escape its effects, but the principle operates nevertheless. The pendulum ever swings, although we may escape being carried along with it. There are other features of the operation of this principle of rhythm, of which we wish to speak at this point. There comes into its operations that which is known as the law of compensation. One of the definitions or meanings of the word compensate is to counterbalance, which is the sense in which the Hermetists use the term. It is the law of compensation to which the Kybalion refers when it says the measure of the swing to the right is the measure of the swing to the left. Rhythm compensates. The law of compensation is that the swing in one direction determines the swing in the opposite direction, or to the opposite pole. The one balances or counterbalances the other. For every action, there is an equal and opposite reaction. On the physical plane, we see many examples of this law. The pendulum of the clock swings a certain distance to the right, and then an equal distance to the left. The seasons balance each other in the same way, the tides follow the same law, and the same law is manifested in all the phenomena of rhythm. The pendulum with a short swing in one direction has but a short swing in the other, while the long swing to the left... I lost my place there. The pendulum with a short swing in one direction has but a short swing in the other, while the long swing to the right invariably means the long swing to the left. An object hurled upwards to a certain height has an equal distance to traverse on its return. The force with which a projectile is sent upwards a mile is reproduced when the projectile returns to the earth on its return journey. This law is constant on the physical plane, as reference to the standard authorities will show you. But the Hermetists carry it still further. They teach that a man's mental states are subject to the same law. The man who enjoys keenly is subject to keen suffering, while he who feels but little pain is capable of feeling but little joy. The pig suffers but little mentally and enjoys but little, but he is compensated. And on the other hand, there are other animals who enjoy keenly, but whose nervous organism and temperament causes them to suffer exquisite degrees of pain, and so it is with man. There are temperaments which permit of but low degrees of enjoyment and equally low degrees of suffering, while there are others which permit the most intense enjoyment but also the most intense suffering. The rule is that the capacity for pain and pleasure in each individual are balanced. The law of compensation is in full operation here. But the Hermetists go still further in this matter. They teach that before one is able to enjoy a certain degree of pleasure, he must have swung as far proportionately towards the other pole of feeling. They hold, however, that the negative is precedent to the positive in this matter. That is to say that in experiencing a certain degree of pleasure, it does not follow that he will have to pay up for it with a corresponding degree of pain. On the contrary, the pleasure is the rhythmic swing according to the law of compensation. For a degree of pain previously experienced either in present life or in a previous incarnation. This throws a new light on the problem of pain. I'm going to speak on this in a moment. I just want to get through this for a moment. Elena Anderson, thank you for helping us wake up the world. Elena says, love your work. Greetings from North Dakota. Greetings, Elena. The Hermetists regard the chain of lives as continuous, as forming part of one life of the individual, so that in consequence the rhythmic swing is understood in this way, while it would be without meaning unless the truth of reincarnation is admitted. But the Hermetists claim that the master of advanced student is able to a great degree, to escape the swing toward pain by the process of neutralization before mentioned. I'm gonna talk about the Hyperion perspective on all this in just a moment. This is just not too much longer, and I want to get through this so I can talk about it all at once. By rising onto the higher plane of the ego, much of the experience that comes to those indwelling on the lower plane is avoided and escaped. Also, I want to also remind you, do you see how in many of these old mysteries and esoteric schools, the ego is not a bad thing, it's a good thing. This is where all this New Age and Eastern religion goes horribly wrong when they talk about the ego as being a bad thing. The ego is nothing you should eliminate. The ego is your tool. You should never try to eliminate the ego. You can temporarily bypass the ego to explore your unconscious, but you shouldn't try and permanently delete it. You shouldn't identify with the ego, because you are not your ego. You shouldn't identify with the ego, but you shouldn't eliminate the ego. The ego is your tool. The ego is a tool. The ego is a tool that will help you. It is what allows you to be an I, a self-aware individual. It is what allows you to master yourself. You can transform your ego. It is the ordering function, the directing function. So you do not want to eliminate the ego. You can temporarily bypass the ego. You do not want to identify with the ego. You aren't your ego. You're an eternal mind. But you do not want to eliminate the ego. Okay? This is where New Age systems and Eastern religions go horribly wrong. Valerie Graves. Thank you for helping us wake up the world. Valerie Gray says, I am Astra. I am a star. Indeed, you are a star. As Aleister Crowley said, every man and every woman is a star, which is true indeed. Okay. We are stars becoming. Ad Astra. To the stars. This is why we call your higher self. This is why we call the higher self the inner star. This is why we call it the inner star, right? We are beings of mind, beings of inner light. Jordy, hello Jordy, says, thank you so much for reading this. Always helps lift my mood. You're so very welcome. Thank you for always joining us and being an awesome supporter. Always happy to see you here, Jordy. Okay. The law of compensation plays an important part in the lives of men and women, and those who don't identify as either. It will be noticed that one generally pays the price of anything he possesses or lacks. I identify as a non-binary, by the way, if you are curious. Anyway, if he has one thing, he lacks another. The balance is struck. No one can keep his penny and have that bit of cake at the same time. Everything has its pleasant and unpleasant sides. The thing that one gains are always paid for by the things that one loses. The rich possess much that the poor lack, while the poor often possess things that are beyond the reach of the rich. The millionaire may have the inclination towards feasting and the wealth wherewith to secure all the dainties and luxuries of the table, while he lacks the appetite to enjoy it. He envies the appetite and digestion of the laborer who lacks the wealth and inclinations of the millionaire, and who gets more pleasure from his plain food than the millionaire could obtain even if his appetite were not jaded, nor his digestion ruined. For the wants, habits, and inclinations differ. And so it is through life. The law of compensation is never in operation, striving to balance and counterbalance, and always succeeding in time, even though several lives may be required for the return swing of the pendulum of rhythm. Okay, let's unpack this. A lot of things to say here. First of all, they're talking about having to do with this over lifetimes. This is dangerously close to karma and old world order thinking. So karma has nothing to do with being a good person or anything like this. This is old world order thinking, so get that out of your heads. The law of karma will basically says, oh, that woman who got raped, well, she got what she deserved because she got raped because she was bad in her past life. This is why it's dangerous thinking, all right? So we completely reject that. Lives, right, linking to avatars in the holos has nothing to do with karma or being a good or a bad person. It's not like, oh man, I got stabbed in this lifetime because I stabbed people in my other previous lifetimes. No. That's dangerous thinking. We exist in this world to learn, grow, and evolve. That's why we exist in this reality, in the physical domain of the holos. We can learn, grow, and this contributes to our mental evolution. It's all about evolution, okay? So nothing to do with the fallacious and dangerous idea of karma. Again, just think about that idea of like, oh, well, that person, got killed or attacked because they deserved it. No. Very dangerous idea. Okay, so that one thing there. And also, this is a very, very interesting point about, the millionaire may have the inclination towards feasting, right? The millionaire may be able to get all the best food, but the millionaire is used to the best food, so he doesn't really enjoy it, whilst the poor person, even though may get shitty food, really enjoys it because they're not used to it. Now, first of all, remember in Hyperianism, this is also dangerous old world order thinking. While there's some truth to it here, this is also dangerous old world order thinking because it's like, It's an excuse to say, hey, it's fine that there's a wage gap because everyone just enjoys things differently. We know that the billionaire class must be removed, and because it results in an inequality of opportunity for us all to grow and live together. So that's dangerous thinking. So that has to be pointed out. However, let me break it down to what is true. What is true is that when we think of happiness in terms of pleasure, it will always fall. So if you get a new car, you might feel happy for a while, but it will fall. Let's say you get a partner, you might feel happy for a while, but then it'll go back down. Say you win the lottery, you might feel happy for a while, but then it will fall back down. So this is why in Hyperianism, we know what is important is having a purpose, reaching towards a goal, working on personal and collective evolution. And happiness isn't a goal in and of itself. Happiness is a product of collective and personal evolution. Because guess what won't fall, right? Happiness rises and falls. Happiness is constantly going to be rising and falling. What doesn't fall? Evolution. Personal and collective evolution. Think of it like leveling up your character. When you gain experience points and you're looking at that bar, right? That level up bar is constantly going higher. As you work on yourself, it's going higher and higher and higher and higher. Now, your happiness levels might rise and fall, but that evolution is not falling. So happiness is like trying to fill up a bucket that has holes in it. It's going to be constantly leaking. But when you're working on personal and collective evolution, you are acquiring a gold that will not dissipate. That's true gold, right? Because you're working on yourself, and that's not going to go away. That's going to stay with you. You're building something. You have all these people out there that aren't working on themselves at all. They have their level up meter is at 0, and it's going to stay at 0 because they have no goal. They're not working on themselves. They're not working towards a purpose. So we have our individual purpose and our collective goal. In Hyperianism, our personal goal is inner star actualization, to actualize our inner potential, to manifest it and bring it outwards, to ascend the evolutionary scale, to ascend the evolutionary ladder. And our collective goal is to build a new humanity and a new earth, to establish new terra, to establish a new world, to create the kingdom of heaven on earth, as it were. That is our collective goal. So we are going to head over to the next chapter right now. But before I do, I just want to jump into the comments here and say hello to everyone. Hello, guys. So good to see you. Sandra. And Brooke and Madame. Good to see you all. Madame Crass says, people that aren't trying to evolve are so strange to me. Indeed, it is strange because they don't have a collective purpose. They don't understand. It's because when you think of this reality as being meaningless, there's no reason to work on yourself. Like, why do it? Why work on yourself? You're just going to die and then be dust and that's it. Why work on yourself? Or if you believe in a creator God, well, you're just going to die and go to heaven. So why work on yourself? We know that our purpose is evolution. We are here to grow and learn. So do you see how what you believe about reality dictates your actions? These people don't work on themselves because the operating system that they have integrated doesn't direct them to work on themselves. It's not in their programming. It's not in their code. It's not in their operating system. Their operating system says, when you die, you die. Why work on yourself? Or, when you die, you go to heaven. Why work on yourself? Our operating system, governed by logic and reason, shows exactly why we need to work on ourselves. Because we are eternal monadic beings, systems of mathematical energy that is constantly evolving and constantly transforming. And our very purpose is to actualize ourselves, actualize the world, actualize the universe, and become the absolute. Our goal is to actualize the Hegelian absolute. Let's see. What are our likes at? Let's smash that like button, guys. What are our likes at right now? I want to take a look. 182. Let's get past 200. Smash that like button, my friends. And if you guys are on Facebook, my God, there are 164 of you on Facebook. Please, if you are on Facebook, go over to YouTube right now, subscribe, and help us reach our goal of 100,000 subscribers. That's where I interact with people in the comments. So if you're on Facebook, go to YouTube. Tell me in the comments if you are a Facebook to YouTube convert, and I will shout you out if I see it. So tell me. Okay. Also, check out my video, Are You Waking Up or Going Crazy? If you are not familiar with my operating system metaphor. In the video, Are You Waking Up or Going Crazy? I talk about this system of uninstalling your old operating system so you can install a new operating system governed by logic and reason. Matt Stenson says, this is the first live stream I'm joining. Thank you for bringing the truth. Hail New Terra. Hail New Terra to you as well, Matt Stenson, and welcome to the first live stream. Katie and Chris, thank you for coming from Facebook to YouTube. Yeah, guys, please subscribe. Please smash like. So we are going to move on right now to the next chapter. But before I do, I have to pee again. Yeah, it's true. I really, really do. So I'm going to go. By the way, guys, you know, I need to figure out, I need to put like a quiz or something on the screen as I use the restroom. Tell me in the comments, like, what you want me to do. Give me some ideas. Should I get like a screen or have users submit things, Hyperion things to show? That's kind of cool. Maybe people can submit like Hyperion artwork or something to show. We need some intermissionary type thing. So tell me in the comments, even if you're watching the replay, tell me in the comments what you think. All right, be right back. All right, I have returned. Wow, my God, the lights are going crazy back there, aren't they? What the hell? Hello, everyone. Good to see you. I have returned. Matt, hello, Matt. Matt just tuned into the YouTube live feed. Thank you, my friend. Remember, I'll give you a shout out if you're coming on here from Facebook. I need a fog machine. Oh man, that's a little much, I think. He needs some milk? Why do I need milk? I am vegan, by the way, so I drink almond milk. Hello, Luke. Nice to see you. Okay. Oh, Soren, thank you for helping us wake up the world. And I don't know what currency that is. Let me look. What is that currency? Oh, Romanian. Thank you so much, my friend. I appreciate it. Okay. So let us... Thank you, Soren. Alright, where am I here? We are... Oh, good! We got 200 likes! Awesome! Continue to smash that like button, guys. 202 likes. Hooray! Bubbles? Someone says I should put bubbles by... Guys, I can't put bubbles... Okay, first of all, that's ridiculous. Okay, for one thing, that's ridiculous. For another, if I had... they would get sticky. There would be sticky bubble splats everywhere. Okay. What are we doing? We're reading the Kybalion. So let's get going. Oh, Michael Andrews, thank you for helping us wake up the world. Michael Andrews asked, do I have videos covering will? You know what? I don't think that I do. No, actually, I don't think... Do I? How interesting. No, I don't believe that I do have any videos covering the will. So perhaps, thank you for that. Thank you for pointing that out, actually. So maybe very soon I should do a video on will and will to power. There's a lot of things we could talk about with will. We can talk about the will to power. We can talk about free will. We can talk about the thelemic will. That's a good suggestion, my friend. So you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to write that down because I should do a video on that. Okay, thanks, my friend, for the suggestion. I am writing that down. Okay, so we're going to continue reading. I'm just saying, is there anything else that we needed to do? No? Okay. Guys, once again, if you are on Facebook, please go over to YouTube and subscribe. I can't tell you how much that helps, guys. So make sure you go over there and do it. Go do it. And if you want to support, you can always support on Patreon and get access to the secret live streams. And I'll just put a link there in case you guys don't know. If you'd like to support, the best way you can do so is on Patreon, and you'll get access to our weekly secret live streams. Okay. So let us continue. We have 209 likes. I wonder if we can make 250 likes. I wonder if that's possible. To do 250 likes by the end of this. I don't know. I'm not sure. Let's see. Let's see how strong your will is. Do you have the will to smash like? Okay. All right. We're getting close to being finished with the Kybalion, guys. It's probably going to be, we're doing it this week. And then next week will also be the Kybalion. But then I think after next week we'll probably be starting a new book, which I'm really excited about, and I'll can't wait. But we still have more to go. Okay. Causation. Every effect has its every cause has its effect. Every effect has its cause. Everything happens according to law. Chance is but a name for law not recognized. There are many planes of causation, but nothing escapes the law. The sixth great Hermetic principle, the principle of cause and effect, embodies the truth that law pervades the universe. Holy shit! Kizzy, you just donated $200? Are you serious? Oh my god. Wow. Jesus Christ. I think that's the biggest single donation we've had on this channel. My God. What did what did you say? I'm a bit taken aback right now. What? Kizzy says, thank you for all that you do. This is to support your work and get yourself something for your birthday. Wow, thank you so much. Happy birthday to me, I suppose. Today is not my birthday, by the way, for those of you just tuning in, but it is coming up soon. Wow, Kizzy, you are amazing. Well, you get a fucking color change for sure, and your name is now up here. Jesus Christ. I don't know what to say. Thank you so much. You are amazing. Spam the fucking Triscale for Kizzy. Yeah, y'all in the comments fucking spam the hell out of the Triscale for Kizzy. Because if anyone, Jesus, let me see. Let me just jump into the comments for a minute. What did Kaede says she gets the bubbles. If I had bubbles right now, I would blow all the bubbles. I would blow every bubble for you, Kizzy. Hell yes. Look at all these Triscales. Let me put some Triscales myself here. Yeah, infinite Triscales for you, Kizzy. Jesus Christ. Okay. Sarah Williams coming over here from Facebook. Thanks for making the great Facebook to YouTube transition. Thank you, Sarah Williams. My God. Okay. Well, thank you, Kizzy. I don't really know what to say other than thank you. That means so much to me. Seriously. I can't tell you. Yeah, the fact that you guys enjoy my work so much is just you know. Anyway, I'm at a loss for words, as you can tell. I'm going to stop embarrassing myself now. Sandra Hanan, my God, donated $50 now. Jesus, Sandra says you're such a love-headed, good-hearted soul. Have a very happy birthday. Thank you so much, Sandra. Just again, so you guys aren't confused, I don't want anyone to be confused. Today is not actually my birthday, okay? My birthday is not today. It's coming soon, but it's not today. I just want to, make that clear so that people aren't like, oh, it's his birthday. But thank you so much, Sandra. Wow, Sandra, you are awesome. Let's spam the Ad Astra symbol for Sandra. Yeah, let's spam the Ad Astra symbol for Sandra. Yeah, you fucking awesome. Thank you so much, Sandra. You are amazing. And someone said, can you explain the Triscale and the inner components of the Hyperion symbol? Yeah, so if you're wondering about this, there's a lot of different things, but watch my video on inner star actualization. So watch the video called Inner Star Actualization, How to Actualize Your Higher Self. And that is where you can find all the information about that. There are multiple meanings of this, but shadow self, mirror self, power self, the ego, all encapsulated within the higher self. But there's also many different meanings, such as thesis, antithesis, synthesis. There's a lot of different meanings, and we could unpack it. But the major meaning is inner star actualization. This is the symbol for you as a monad, the inner star, evolving with your inner structures. Okay, so let's see. Yeah, good. I'm glad we're spamming those Ad Astras for Sandra and for Kizzy. My God, all you guys are fucking amazing. All right, thank you guys so much. I'm gonna keep reading because yeah, thank you so much, Sandra and Kizzy and all you guys. Jesus. All you guys, even if you can't donate, just subscribing, liking, watching, sharing, all that helps so much. So don't feel bad. Don't feel bad if you can't donate. Okay, just liking, sharing, subscribing, all that is super helpful. Wow. Okay, guys. I gotta figure out something amazing to do when stuff like that happens, because I want to do something, but I don't know what. Okay. So let's continue. Let's continue here. Where are we? Where are we? Okay. So let's remind ourselves what we're doing here. Every cause has its effect. Everything, in a nutshell, everything happens according to law. The great sixth Hermetic principle, the principle of cause and effect, embodies the truth that law pervades the universe, that nothing happens by chance, that chance is merely a term indicating cause existing but not recognized or perceived, that phenomena is continuous without break or exception. Okay, so let me okay. Sorry. Y'all distracted me so damn much. Here is what this really means. Cause and effect is not the best word to use here. Remember when I showed you that everything is changing, except there is only one thing that isn't changing, and that is mathematical law? That's basically what's being said here, but not expressed as rigorously. So basically, yes, this is a world of change, but it is governed by law. And in Hyperianism, we know that law to be reason or mathematics, mathematical law, rational law. This is called the principle of sufficient reason for everything that occurs. There must be a sufficient reason for why it is thus and not otherwise. But in a nutshell, in its most simplistic terms, it means that this world is governed by mathematical law. Okay? Nothing happens by chance. Chance is merely a term indicating cause existing but not recognized or perceived. Alright, this is really important, and I'm going to show you why in just a minute, but let me get through this paragraph here. The principle of cause and effect, or just mathematical law, underlies all scientific thought, ancient and modern, and was enunciated by the Hermetic teachers in the earliest days. While many and varied disputes between the many schools of thoughts have since arisen, these disputes have been principally upon the details of the operation of the principle, and still more often upon the meaning of certain words. The underlying principle of cause and effect has been accepted as correct by practically all thinkers of the world worthy of the name. To think otherwise would be to take the phenomena of the universe from the domain of law and order and to relegate it to the control of the imaginary something which men have called chance. A little consideration will show anyone that there is in reality no such thing as pure chance. Now this is super important, okay? And it's very nuanced. So let's unpack this. There is no such thing as pure chance. Now, when this was written, quantum mechanics was just starting to come about. And what this is so important to understand is that the modern interpretation of quantum physics, the modern interpretation, modern physics actually denies this. So, the Copenhagen interpretation of quantum mechanics says that reality is inherently random, that there is no law and order, that reality is built on randomness. And this is one of the most fallacious things that you could possibly say. But you might be thinking, but I thought quantum mechanics is true. Well, I mean, that in and of itself is not entirely accurate. However, what I want you to understand is that Quantum mechanics does not say that reality is random. A particular interpretation of quantum mechanics says that reality is random. There exists other interpretations of quantum mechanics, such as pilot wave theory, Bohmian mechanics, that is deterministic and restores law and order and doesn't predicate reality on randomness. Basically, what happens is that quantum mechanics shows that we get a particular result. Scientists look at this and go, shit, we have this result. How can we explain this? And so they go, you know what? It must be randomness. And this is where you hear of the wave function collapse. They say that reality collapses from unreality randomly. And this is the most illogical and fallacious thing you can possibly say. They have no way of defining what unreality is and no way of defining true randomness. True randomness is impossible because everything follows law. And this is starting to get pretty high level, so I'm going to do my best to explain this in the most simplistic terms as possible. Because really, I can only explain this by using math, but then this video would be crazy. So I'm going to try and explain this as best as possible. But essentially, to say that something happens randomly is the same thing as appealing to a miracle or saying that God did it, right? So something that occurs, like wave function collapse, they can't explain it, so they appeal to say, oh, well, it's random. This is like the religious who can't explain something. Well, how did the earth get created? God created it, right? Well, how did, and similarly in physics, how did the Big Bang occur? Random quantum fluctuations. Randomness. Whenever you hear the word randomness, it means that they don't understand what's happening. So why are they saying that randomness is based on that reality is based on randomness? Because if they instead said that reality was based on mind, if they accepted that this was a mental reality, then randomness wouldn't be necessary. But they don't want to accept that this is a mental reality because they've been brainwashed by the physical material paradigm. So instead they appeal to randomness. Do you see? It's like they have two options in front of them. They can choose reality is, this is a reality of mind, or, well, it happens randomly. They don't want to choose mind because they've been brainwashed by materialism, so they choose randomness. So this is why it's so important that the empiricist, materialist, scientific paradigm is no longer based on logic and reason. It is based on the opposite of logic and reason, and that is randomness. And it's completely fallacious. Now, this is because randomness is the opposite to law. It's the opposite of logic. It's the opposite of reason. And I'm going to show you why in just a minute. So, and the Kybalion actually has some good things to say about this. A little consideration will show anyone that there is in reality no such thing as pure chance or randomness. Replace chance with randomness. Webster defines the word chance as follows: a supposed agent or mode of activity other than a force, law, or purpose, the operation or activity of such agent, the supposed effect of such an agent, a happening, fortuity, causality, etc. But a little consideration will show you that there can be no such thing as chance or randomness in the sense of something outside of law, something outside of cause and effect. How could there be something acting in the phenomenal universe independent of the laws, order, and continuity of the latter? So this is a lawful, rational, structured, ordered universe. Randomness is literally the lack of order, law, and structure. So how could something random operate within law and structure. It's a literal impossibility. I'm not being hyperbolic. I'm not exaggerating. It is literally an impossibility. It's like saying 2 plus 2 equals 72. It is literally an impossibility. Such a something would be entirely independent of the orderly trend of the universe and therefore superior to it. We can imagine nothing outside of the all being outside of the law, and that only because the all is the law in itself. Reality is law. Reality is mathematical. And randomness would be outside of the law of mathematics. And nothing can operate outside of the law of mathematics. There is no room in the universe for something outside of and independent of law. The existence of, remember, randomness is the absence of law. The existence of such a something would render all natural laws ineffective and would plunge the universe into chaotic disorder and lawlessness. Now, this is super important. Now, please stay with me because a lot of people can get lost here. A careful examination will show that what we call chance is merely an expression relating to obscure causes, causes that we cannot perceive, causes that we cannot understand. Okay, so look here. The word chance is derived from a word meaning to fall, such as the falling of dice. The idea that the fall of the dice and many other happenings are merely a happening unrelated to any cause. Okay, so let's say you take a dice and you roll the dice. I want you to understand the difference between true randomness and the appearance of randomness. So if you take a dice and you roll the dice, well, wouldn't you say, well, it's random what you get? Are you going to get 1, 2, 3, or 4, or 5, or 6? I don't know. It's random. So doesn't that show that randomness can exist in this reality? But the roll of the dice is not true randomness. It's only apparent randomness. If you took a die and you knew the exact angle the die was thrown, the exact force that was applied to it, the exact wind resistance that it would face, the exact angle that it hit the table, the distance that it fell to the table, the friction that it encountered on the table. If you knew all of these details, you could predict with accuracy what number that the die would lie on. If you knew all the details about the angle, force, wind resistance, friction, distance, you would know exactly what side the die would land on. So you see, it's not true randomness. We call it random because we don't know all these infinitely tiny details. And because we don't know all these infinitely tiny details, it seems random to us because of the lack of our knowledge. Okay? So please this is and I really want to drive this home because this is actually critical to understand. It's so important. So that is apparent randomness, but it's really not random. It's still following laws. The law of force, the law of wind resistance, all these different things. It's following all these different properties, which will deterministically cause that die to land on a certain number. We don't know those details, so it seems random to us. But seeming random isn't the same as true randomness. What would true randomness be? True randomness would be like, even if you knew all those details, we still couldn't know what it would land on. It would be like, if I was holding, let's say I was holding a die in my hand, and that die just suddenly flipped over to the 6 for no reason at all. That would be true randomness, right? If I'm just holding it there for absolutely no reason, it just flipped over to 6. That would be true randomness. That is impossible, okay? True randomness is impossible. There must be some reason, some law, some rational, even if we don't know what it is, even if it's super hard to find out, it must exist. It's not just going to flip over. That's a miracle, right? That's something that couldn't happen. That's an impossibility. And the scary thing is that the current physicalist paradigm rejects that this world is a mental reality, and instead says that reality is based on true randomness. The level of, I cannot overemphasize the level of insanity that is. That's like saying God created it, or that it's just a miracle. But the reason why that they do this is because they don't want to accept that this is a mental reality. If you accept that this is a mental reality, you don't have to predicate reality on randomness. You can understand that it's a manifestation of mind. But they can't understand how particles behave the way they do, because they would have to admit that particles were following a mental trajectory. So rather than embracing a well-defined, deterministic mental trajectory, they ditch that and say it just happens randomly and appeal to an unreal, random wave function collapse. So please understand that the prevailing paradigm of modern physics is not rational and not logical. It is based on randomness. And randomness is outside of law and order and outside of a mathematical existence. And it is outside of reason. It is the exact opposite of reason. We're now in the land of miracles. So yes, that I know I spent some time talking about this, but it's something that's easily misunderstood, because again, most people will be like, well, look, I can roll a die and that's random. That's not actually random. It's just apparent randomness. So reality cannot be based on true randomness. Luke Dillon, thank you for helping us wake up the world. Luke Dillon says, is it then possible there are laws we don't know? In ontological mathematics, we know the one law that all of existence lies on, and that is the source formula. We know it. The reason why that science does this, modern science does this, is because they refuse to embrace the laws of reality. They refuse to admit that this is a mental mathematical reality. That's why we say scientific empiricism and materialism must be jettisoned and replaced by scientific rationalism and idealism. So scientific empiricism and materialism, what does that mean? That's the current paradigm. Empiricism means it must be verifiable by the senses, and materialism, that reality is material. Okay? But our paradigm is rationalism, scientific rationalism and idealism, which says it must be compatible with logic and reason, and that this is a mathematical mental reality. So the reason why scientific materialism goes on the side of Amy Stone, thank you for helping us wake up the world. Amy Stone says ad astra. The reason why scientific materialism sides with randomness instead of reason is because reason shows that this is a mathematical mental reality. And they're empiricists, so they only go with their senses, and so since you can't visually see a mental reality, they go, oh, that can't be true. And so reality must be random. So it's not that these laws can't be known. We know these laws. It's that the scientific establishment refuses to embrace these laws. Just like the Catholic Church refused to believe that the sun was at the center of the solar system. The Catholic Church said, no, the sun can't be at the center of the solar system. According to the evidence of the Bible, the earth is at the center of the solar system. Right? They refused to listen to logic and reason because they were under the paradigm of faith. Just like today, the current scientific establishment is under the faith of the senses, empiricism, and the faith of matter, materialism, where logic and reason shows that this is an immaterial, mental, mathematical reality governed by logic and reason. So scientific empiricism, physicalism, has literally rejected reason and sided with the opposite of reason, which is randomness, because they would have to admit that this was a mental reality. Just like the Catholic Church would have to admit that the Bible was wrong. They just don't want to do it because it would break their paradigm. Just like Max Planck said that a new scientific truth does not triumph by convincing its opponents and making them see the light, but because they eventually die and a new generation grows up with it. Max Planck said mind is the matrix of all matter. Schrödinger said that consciousness was fundamental and that this life was a dream. Which, again, it is absolutely staggering, and the reason why I want to get this across so hard is because people can't look outside of the time they were born in. And the truth is that the empirical materialist paradigm, the current scientific paradigm, the current paradigm of modern physics today is going to be looked at just as crazy in the future as we look back at the Catholic Church, who said that the Earth was at the center of the solar system. This is 100% guaranteed, because mathematical law is true and randomness is outside of math. Again, it's like saying, oh, God did it, but we're not going to say how God can be possible. It's impossible to say how randomness... You can't say how randomness can operate because randomness is literally the absence of law. Randomness is literally the absence of law, so it's impossible to say even how randomness would operate. Do you see how you can't say how something would operate if the thing we're talking about is the absence of operation? The thing is the absence of operation, so it's impossible to say how it would... It's a complete and total fallacy. It's an even bigger fallacy than saying, and God created it. It's even worse than that. Okay. Darlene, thank you for helping us wake up the world. $20, you're awesome. Thank you so much, Darlene. And Matt, thank you so much for helping us wake up the world as well. You're amazing. Thank you I'm so glad you enjoy my work. Okay, so once again, guys, I know I've talked about this a lot, but I just get so frustrated because I see people who escape the brainwashing of religion, but then they get entrapped by the ideas of empirical and materialist faith. And it's really sad to me. And I want to be like, guys, you don't understand. They talk about logic and reason, but they are predicated on randomness, which is the opposite of logic and reason. And this is not apparent randomness. Apparent randomness is fine. The roll of the dice, that's totally fine, because that's governed by rational rules. You can govern that by rational rules. Even chaos theory, right? The butterfly effect. That's mathematical. That's governed by mathematical rules. That's all apparent randomness and apparent chaos, not true randomness, not true chaos, right? Like if you take a mirror and you shatter it, and that's apparent randomness, apparent chaos, but it's not true randomness. It's not true chaos. There's still rules. You hit the glass with a certain angle, they flew off with a certain velocity, they hit a certain wind speed, blah, 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 blah. It's just when you get to a certain level, the quantum level of reality, it turns out that the fundamental particles are governed by mental laws of mind. They follow mental trajectories. And so materialist science doesn't want to admit that particles follow mental trajectories because it breaks materialism, just like the Catholic Church didn't want to admit that the sun was at the center, that the sun was at the center of the solar system because it conflicted with the Bible. Right? We want to place mind at the center of reality. But they don't want to because they say, oh, well, it has to be matter simply because our empirical materialist faith says so. Just like the Catholic Church said, well, the Earth must be at the center of the solar system because our Catholic faith, our faith in the Bible, says that it must be. Okay. Oh, sorry about that. Things are sliding around. My God! Things are apparently chaotic. Okay, so let's continue. So this is very cool. The Kybalion gets some things right, some things wrong, but here they're real spot on with this. As long as we interpret, so they say chance, as long as we change chance to randomness, and as long as they say cause and effect, as long as we change cause and effect to mathematical law. Because if we want to be really, really, really picky, it's not technically cause and effect, it's mathematical law. But they're the laws of reason, the laws of thought. So it's just using different words to express the same thing. So a careful examination will show that what we call chance or randomness is merely an expression relating to obscure causes. Causes we cannot perceive, causes we cannot understand. The word chance is derived from a word meaning to fall, as the falling of dice. The idea being that the fall of the dice and many other happenings are merely a happening unrelated to any cause. And this is the sense in which the term is generally employed. But when the matter is closely examined, it is seen that there is no chance whatsoever about the fall of the dice. Each time a die falls and displays a certain number, it obeys a law as infallible as that which governs the revolution of the planets around the sun. Behind the fall of the die are causes, or chains of causes, running back further than the mind can follow. The position of the die in the box, the amount of muscular energy expended in the throw, the condition of the table, all are causes, the effects which may be seen. But behind these seen causes, there are chains of unseen preceding causes, all of which had a bearing upon the number of the die which fell uppermost. So again, they're just saying that when you roll the die, it's not really random. It might seem like that, but it's not. It's the chain, the position of the die in the box, the amount of muscular energy expended. All of these are laws, causes, effects, whatever you want to call them, that result. See, there is a reason why the die displays a particular number. There's a reason for it. If it were truly random, there would be no reason. It could just flip. In fact, if reality were random, that die could transform into a dragon if you wanted. Like there's randomness is randomness. Randomness is not the same thing as perceived randomness or apparent randomness. So reality is either 100% lawful and ordered and structural, or 100% random. Because the two things are opposed to each other. Remember when we talked about poles? Randomness and order are not polar opposites. They're two different things. Randomness is literally the absence and lack and nullity of law. And law and order is law and order. Reason, mathematical law. They cannot exist together. It is a literal impossibility. It's like saying 2 plus 2 equals 72. It's like saying 2 plus 2 equals pumpkin. It's just so, it's not, the logical fallacy here is, I cannot emphasize enough how big it is. If a die be cast a great number of times, it will be found that the numbers shown will be about equal. That is, there will be an equal number of 1 spot, 2 spot, etc. coming uppermost. Toss a penny in the air, and it may come down either heads or tails. But make a sufficient number of tosses, and the heads and tails will be about even. This is the operation of the law of average. But both the average and the single toss come under the law of cause and effect. And if we were able to examine into the preceding causes, it would be clearly seen that it was simply impossible for the die to fall other than it did. under the same circumstances and at the same time. Given the same causes, the same results will follow. There is always a cause and a because to every event. Nothing ever happens without a cause, or rather a chain of causes. Some confusion has arisen in the minds of persons considering this principle from the fact that they were unable to explain how one thing could cause another thing, that is, to be the creator of the second thing. As a matter of fact, no thing ever causes or creates another thing. Cause and effect deals merely with events. An event is that which comes, arrives, or happens as a result or consequent of some preceding event. No event creates another event, but is merely a preceding link in the great orderly chain of events flowing from the creative energy of the all. There is a continuity between all events precedent, consequent, and subsequent. There is a relation existing between everything that has gone before and everything that follows. A stone is dislodged from a mountainside and crashes through a roof of a cottage in the valley below. At first sight, we may regard this as a chance effect, right? A stone fell from a mountain and crashed through a roof of a house. And we go, oh man, how random. But when we examine the matter, we find a great chain of causes behind it. In the first place, there was the rain, which softened the earth, supporting the stone, and which allowed it to fall. Then back of that which was the influence of the sun, other rains, etc., which gradually disintegrated the piece of rock from a larger piece. Then there were the causes which led to the formation of the mountain and its upheaval by convolutions of nature, and so on ad infinitum. Then we might follow up the causes behind the rain. Then we might consider the existence of the roof. In short, we would soon find ourselves involved in such a mesh of cause and effect from which we would soon strive to extricate ourselves. And that's the thing. So all these sorts of things are physical causes, but there's also mental causation, okay? And that's the thing which physics tries to deny, is the fact that there is mental causation, okay? Mental causation is necessary to existence, okay? Mental causation can affect the physical. I have a thought that I wish to raise my arm, and that causes an effect in the physical. So mental causation is primary to the physical. And then when you get to the level of subatomic particles, the subatomic particles follow mental causation. That is, their trajectories are mental trajectories of mind. Well, once again, physical science wants to deny the existence of mind, wants to say that everything is matter, so they reject mental trajectories and replace it with randomness. Just like the Catholic Church would try and reject the idea that the Earth was at the that the sun was at the center of the solar system, and try and say, well, that it was the Earth because of the Bible. Just as a man has 2 parents and 4 grandparents, and 8 great-grandparents, and 16 great-great-grandparents, and so on. And by the way, the fact that there is mental causation is also what gives us free will. And I'll talk about that in a little bit later. But some people think, well, doesn't that mean that there's no free will? And they want to say that free will is in randomness. That's not true. Free will actually lies in mental causation. If randomness is the opposite of free will. Randomness is something happening for no reason. Guess what? If you decide you want to go do something, like, I'm really thirsty right now, so I'm going to use my free will to pick up that glass of water and drink it. That's because of mental causation. If randomness governed reality, you wouldn't have free will because there would be no reason for any of your actions. It would be completely random. You'd just punch your glass randomly. Or, you know what I'm saying? You wouldn't have free will if randomness were the essence of reality, because there would be no reason for your actions. You have free will because you are mentally self-governing and mentally self-determining. Yes, you are a deterministic system, but each one of us are self-determining, self-deterministic systems. We act a certain way because of our free will, because of our mental causation, because of our decisions, because we choose freely based on our mental causation to carry out certain actions. I feel hungry. I'm going to get some food. I am thirsty. I am going to drink some water. This is my free will that I am choosing based on my personal self-determining mental causation. I mean, this is also influenced by the physical. It's all a feedback loop, right? Because physical processes also influence mental processes, and mental processes influence physical processes as well. So it's all a feedback loop feeding into one thing to another, right? If you are chained to the ground, well, you're not as free anymore because a physical process is constraining you. So anyway, that free will is a whole nother topic, but I just want to show that randomness doesn't give you free will. Randomness takes away your free will. What gives you free will is mental causation, mathematical law, as a self-determining, determinist mathematical monad, an eternal mind. Okay. Just as a man has 2 parents, and 4 grandparents, and 8 great-great-grandparents, and 16 great-great-grandparents, and so on, until when we say 40 generations are calculated, the number of ancestors run into many millions. So it is with the number of causes behind even the most trifling event or phenomenon, such as the passage of a tiny speck of soot before your eye. It is not an easy matter to trace the bit of soot back to the early period of the world's history when it formed a part of the massive tree trunk. See, that little tiny piece of soot in your eye could be traced back with causation to when it was a part of a massive tree trunk, which was afterwards converted into coal, and so on, until as the speck of soot it now passes before your vision on its way to other adventures. Right? And maybe that speck of soot caused you to go blind, and you walked off a cliff and died, right? So you could trace back your walking off a cliff from the soot in your eye to the tree trunk, to the coal, to the formation of the earth. Anyway. And a mighty chain of events, causes and effects, brought it to its present condition, and the latter is but one of the chain of events which will go to produce other events hundreds of years from now. One of the series of events arising from the tiny bit of soot was the writing of these lines, which caused the typesetter to perform certain work, the proofreader to do likewise, and which will arouse certain thoughts in your mind and that of others, which will in turn affect others, and so on, beyond the ability of man to think of further, and all from the passage of a tiny bit of soot, all of which shows the relativity and association of things, and the further fact that there is no great, there is no small, in the mind that causeth all. So this is really cool. This person is saying, I think the person who's writing this is saying that they got soot in their eyes, and the fact that the person writing this got soot in their eyes caused them to write this example about soot, which caused the writing of these lines, which caused the writing of this book, which caused me to do a video on this, which caused you to listen to it, which will arouse certain thoughts in your mind right now. Stop to think a moment. If a certain man had not met a certain maid away back in the dim period of the Stone Age, you who are now reading these lines would not be here. And if perhaps the same couple had failed to meet, we who now write these lines would not now be here. And the very act of writing on our part and the act of reading on yours will affect not only the respective lives of yourselves and ourselves, but will also have a direct or indirect effect upon many other people now living and who will think in the ages to come. Every thought we think, every act we perform has its direct and indirect result, which fit into the great chain of cause and effect. We do not wish to enter into a consideration of free will or determinism in this works for various reasons. But what I'm telling you here, we are talking about free will and determinism very, very, very briefly. But basically all the stuff that they're talking about has to do with physical causation. But remember that there is also mental causation. So not only is there the physical world with all the physical causes, like dominoes hitting each other, or, again, raining on the mountain, causing a chunk to fall and fall into the roof. That's all physical cause and effect. But there is also mental cause and effect. So you have the physical world, which is a system of cause and effect, but each single one of us are each individual eternal minds, and each one of us are self-determining deterministic systems. So each one of us are units of free will, basically. We have free will. And it is compatible with determinism because we are self-determining. We determine ourselves. Each and every one of us determines ourselves. And what we want to do is create a world that maximizes our capability of determining ourselves and for the collective to determine ourselves. You can think of evolution as the maximization of free will. It's maximizing the free will of ourselves individually and maximizing the free will of ourselves as a collective. That's where we even see social distancing taking into a place. We are choosing ourselves as individuals to limit some of our own individual free will by staying in our houses. And by doing that, we are maximizing the free will of the collective. Because now, some people who would have died are staying alive. So even though we are choosing with our free will to limit our own free will by staying in our houses, we're maximizing the collective free will by allowing more people to live and survive who are each free wills of their own. Okay? So it's not this is probably why they don't want to talk about it, because it's actually really, really complicated, because each one of us are individual units of free wills, but we all interact and have a feedback loop and determine each other. We're self-determining deterministic systems that also determine the physical world and each other. There's mental to physical causation, physical to mental causation, mental to mental causation, all these different transmutations, all these different transpositions of these different possibilities. The teachings are that a man may be both free and yet bound by necessity, depending on the meaning of these terms. The further the creation is from the center, the more it is bound. The nearer the center it reaches, the nearer free is it. Basically, they're saying free will is really complicated and they don't want to talk about it. But here you can see the further the creation is from the center, the more it is bound. The nearer the center it reaches, the nearer free is it. So the more we evolve, the more free we become. Because in the beginning, all right, like look at the forces of nature. We're bound by the forces of nature. If a hurricane comes, we could die. But as we grow and evolve and master nature, we become mastering these forces and our freedom increases. Look at, this is why we need to build a world society. The ultimate increase in our freedom will be when we create a world society that recognizes that we are a collective and reflections of each other. Because then our goal will be to maximize each other's freedom. And then we'll know how stupid it is to start wars in which we are taking each other's lives, in which people are trying to limit others' freedoms like LGBTQ and things like this. An understanding of the principles of reality will unlock the keys to creating a new world where we understand that we are a collective built towards maximizing the freedom of all of us together. The majority of people are more or less the slaves of heredity, environment, and manifest very little freedom, right? Most people are products of their environment or their parents. They're born a Christian, they stay a Christian their whole life. But those of us who understand how to become autonomous, we can use logic and reason to break free from our environmental and mental conditioning and create ourselves. Do you see how that's where free will comes into play? Someone that's a product of their environment and mental conditioning by external influences are no longer self-determining, they're determined by another. And we are self-determining in that we can use logic and reason as the ultimate way to become self-determining. Because logic and reason says, no, I'm not going to believe what so-and-so tells me. I'm not going to believe in randomness. I'm not going to believe in a creator God, because logic and reason shows that it's not true. I'm going to use my own thought process for my own self-determination. They are swayed by the opinions, customs, and thoughts of the outside world. These are the individuals we call the ignavi. And also by their emotions, feelings, moods. They manifest no mastery worthy of the name. They indignantly repudiate this assertion, saying, "Why, I certainly am free to act and do as I please. I just do what I want to do." But they fail to explain whence arise the want to and as I please. What makes them want to do one thing in preference to another? What makes them please to do this and not do that? Is there no because to their pleasing and wanting? Yeah, see, the ignavi might say they're free. They might think that they're free, but they can't say why they do one thing rather than another. They think that they're free, but they're not. They're not thinking for themselves. They're a product of their environment and their mental conditioning, and they don't know it. The master can change these pleases and wants into others as the opposite end of the mental pole. He is able to will, right? That's so important. Being able to use your will to will. Will to will. Instead of to will because some feeling, mood, emotion, or environment suggestion arouses a tendency or desire with him so to do. So you might will, I feel like eating 20 cookies right now. But use your will, to overcome that. No, I know that that will have a negative impact on my life, so I use my will to choose to not do that and eat this asparagus and broccoli instead, because I'm not going to be swayed. Now that's a really, really simplistic example. But you can take that to so many other pertinent examples, such as, I believe that I'm going to live a life pleasing to God because I don't want to go to hell. That's a complete and total lack of logic and reason and a product of environmental and mental conditioning. Hell is a fabrication. It's mental conditioning. There is no God, such as the God of the Bible, blah, blah, blah. And only logic and reason can free one from this. The majority of people are carried along like the falling stone or someone, drawn along a river, obedient to environment, outside influences, and internal moods, desires, etc. Not to speak of the desires and wills of others stronger than themselves. If you want to see my video on this, look at my video. I think it's called How to Know If You're Brainwashed. Something like that. Just, search my channel with the word brainwashed, and it talks about this. Not to speak of the desires and wills of others stronger than themselves, heredity, environment, and suggestion, carrying them along without resistance on their part or the exercise of the will. Moved like pawns on the checkerboard of life, they play their parts and are laid aside after the game is over. But the masters, this is what we want to become, all right? Remember, we want to become the master. We want to become the living archetypes. We don't want to be shaped by others. We want to be the shapers. We want to be the archetype. When you become a living archetype, you become so powerful that others tune into your pattern. Right? You can see this with like celebrities or false archetypes. Do you see when celebrities, oh my God, like everyone starts to become like a certain celebrity. They start dressing like a celebrity, acting like a celebrity. So these celebrities act as false archetypes. People are tuning into their vibration, their frequency, and acting and becoming like copies, lesser copies of that archetypal pattern, that false archetypal pattern. And this world breeds negative archetypes. So this is why, as Hyperians, we want to become true archetypes, archetypes of logic, archetypes of reason, archetypes of compassion, archetypes of power, archetypes of self-mastery, archetypes of collective freedom, archetypes of autonomy, archetypes of intelligence, archetypes of art, archetypes of expression. We, as Hyperians, want to become living archetypes so that the world will tune into our patterns and have and grow, because they're tuning into positive patterns instead of tuning into patterns of the billionaire rich elite, instead of turning into the pattern of the Kardashians, instead of turning into the pattern of mindless junk food and television, and molding their lives according to archetypes like negative celebrities. This is why we want to become living archetypes for people to tune into our pattern. But that's why we must do the work to become living archetypes. And that's why the first step to do that is inner star actualization. You have to integrate your shadow self, mirror self, and power self so that you can begin, until you've done that and begun the process of integrating your higher self, only then can you start to become a living archetype. Because to become a living archetype, you have to start to actualize your higher self, but then you also have to figure out, how are you going to express this? Through what modality are you going to express it, right? How are you going? So you have a signal, but how are you going to broadcast that signal? Will it be through live videos? Are you going to broadcast your signal? Is it going to be through music? Is it going to be through the creation of art? What modality, what medium are you going to use to broadcast your frequency so that others might grow and learn from it and evolve themselves, right? How are you going to do that? But the masters, knowing the rules of the game, rise above the plane of material life and, placing themselves in touch with the higher powers of their nature, dominate their moods, characters, qualities, and polarity, as well as the environment surrounding them, and thus become movers in the game. This is us. This is what we strive. This is the goal of Hyperianism, is to transform Hyperians into living archetypes. This is how we will transform the world and create a new humanity and create a new earth. As well as the environment surrounding them, and thus become movers in the game instead of pawns, causes instead of effects. The masters do not escape the causation of the higher planes, but fall in line with the higher laws, and thus master circumstances on the lower plane. We understand how reality works. We can use the laws of existence to our advantage. It's like learning the rules of the game. People don't even know that they're in a game. We first understand that, we're in a game, and then understand the rules of the game and how to use the rules to our advantage. They thus form a conscious part of the law, instead of being mere blind instruments. While they serve on the higher planes, they rule on the material plane, meaning that we aren't free from law, because that would be randomness. We are governed by law, but since we are mathematical entities, in essence we are law, so we can't be above ourselves because we are it. But we are able to use all these laws and rules to our advantage. But on higher and on lower, the law is always in operation. There is no such thing as chance. The blind goddess has been abolished by reason. Yes, this is absolutely true. The idea that the world is random is abolished by reason. Reason abolishes it. We are able now to see, with eyes made clear by knowledge, by reason, that everything is governed by universal law, that the infinite number of laws are but manifestation of the one great law, the law which is the all. And we've seen that the source formula is the one great law that all laws flow from. It is the governing equation of us, of the absolute, of each one of us as eternal minds. It is the generator of the frequency patterns that are what we are. We are the source formula. That is what we are. It is true indeed that not a sparrow drops unnoticed by the mind of the all, that even the hairs on our head are numbered. As the scripture have said, there is nothing outside of law, nothing that happens contrary to it. And yet do not make the mistake of supposing that man is but a blind automaton. Far from that. The Hermetic teachings are that man may use law to overcome laws with a lower L, like, anyway, overcome not the law, but lowercase laws, such as laws that aren't truly laws, and that until the higher will always prevail against the lower, until at last he has reached the stage in which he seeks refuge in the law itself and laughs the phenomenal laws to scorn. Are you able to grasp the inner meaning of this? So are you able to understand? Do you have the eyes to see? Do you have the ears to hear that we are law and we have the potential to become these living archetypes? That we will laugh at the laws of the phenomenal world because we are the laws of the absolute, the law of mind. We are the destiny to be swayed. It's like being in a dream and laughing at what happens in the dream because we realize that we are the dreamers of dreams. We are the creators of the dreams. We are the laws of that dream. So we'll laugh at what happens in the dream. We'll laugh at the lesser laws that are happening in the dream because we know that we are the masters and the controllers of the dream, and we can shape the dream according to our will. But we must put in the will to make that happen. And that's why it is imperative that we begin this process of inner star actualization. That's the first, right? The first process is inner star actualization so that we can begin to master, to begin to actualize our higher self. Then once we've started the process of actualizing our higher self, then we can become a living archetype. And becoming a living archetype entails choosing a medium through which to transmit your frequency, whether that's art, music, programming, writing, videos, whatever, a way to broadcast your message. Check out the video I did on inner star actualization that talks about how to actualize your higher self, how to choose an inner star anchor to associate with your higher self so you can begin to think as the higher self. All right, so this is our goal. This is our will to create a new humanity and a new earth. And this is how we will do it, by becoming living archetypes. Fully actualized Hyperians who have fully actualized themselves, not even fully actualized, but have begun the process. And have begun the process of becoming living archetypes is an unstoppable force and will transform the world because our message will ripple across the consciousness of the earth and raise the consciousness of the earth up. Because that is what archetypes do. Just like your inner archetypes shape your consciousness, we, as above, so below, we, as Hyperians, when we have reached that level, are the archetypes of this world that shape the archetypes when others tune into our pattern and model themselves accordingly instead of the false archetypes that this world offers. All right, let me jump into Brenda Chartrand, thank you for helping us wake up the world. Says you are awesome, and my friend thinks so as well after introducing him to your videos and my mind. My friend Steven says thanks for everything and the truth. Thank you, Brenda, and say hello to Steven for me. I highly appreciate that. Let me jump. I'm going to jump into the comments here. Hello, everybody. How are you all doing? Remember, guys, if you are on Facebook, I'm going to be in the comments here. So please make sure that you go over to YouTube, okay? Please subscribe over on YouTube, and that's where I'm interacting in the comments. Let me just pull up the comments real quick. All right, so good to see every one of you. Hello, Mike, Hoover, Kizzy. Oh, did I miss some donate? Oh my lord, I missed Tammy. Oh my god, Tammy donated $100. Holy shit! Thank you so much, Tammy. I didn't even see that. Susan, thank you for pointing that out to me. I would have missed that. Thank you, Elise, as well. My god, thank you so much, Tammy. You are awesome. I never know what to say. You've done that. You've done that quite a few times now, Tammy. Thank you. Thank you so much. All that means the world to me. Thank you for pointing that out. Let's what emoji shall we spam for Tammy? Let's see. Let's do some Ad Astras to the stars. Let's do Ad Astra for Tammy. Yeah, I completely missed that. Thank you guys so much for pointing that out. My apologies, Tammy. I was in the. Kizzy says I was in the zone. Yes, I was in the zone. Let's spam those Ad Astras for Tammy. Thank you so much. All right, and in the meantime, guys, remember, if you are on Facebook, please go over to YouTube and subscribe right now. Help us reach our goal of 100,000 subscribers, and tell me in the comments if you are from Facebook so I can give you a shout out. I'll give you a shout out. Valerie says, Morgue, you may want to come back later and read all our conversation. I don't know. What were you guys talking about? I don't trust you guys. You guys are sometimes talking about some really weird, weird things. Brenda, thank you so much for helping us wake up the world. It says we're watching in Ontario and Quebec. Oh, great. Is that Stephen in Quebec? And you're in Ontario. Awesome. Thank you guys so much for watching. Look at all those Ad Astras. Awesome. Darcy donated $50. My God. Jeez, Darcy donated $50. Said, sending much love and appreciation for all the hard work you put in. I believe in supporting the movement. Wow. Well, thank you so much, Darcy. Jeez, we're running out of emojis. Let's spam the Omega symbol for Darcy. For those of you who don't know, the Omega symbol, this represents our movement towards the Omega point. If you notice, there is the world or the universe within Omega. This is us creating a world society and really a universal society, bringing us closer to the Omega point. Thank you, Darcy. You're awesome. Let's hit those likes. Man, we're at 237 likes. Let's get those likes to 250. Let's do that. Let's get 250 likes. That's what we reached. Our last live stream, we reached 250 likes. So let's do it. Let's do it this time. Shadow Raven says, I have a tattoo on my hand that literally says Omega on my fingers. That's awesome. That's a fantastic tattoo. Nicholas Marsh says, I'm from Facebook. Awesome. Remember, if you're from Facebook, go to YouTube, please subscribe, then let me know that you did so I can give you a shout out in the comments. I can't tell you how much that helps. Remember, guys, if you want to help and you can't donate, don't feel bad. You can help out by subscribing, hitting the bell, liking the video, and sharing this video. If you're on Facebook, sharing this video helps a bunch. We're at 243 likes. Let's get to 250. Darcy says, love our group we have here. Such an important part of my week. I can't tell you how much I look forward to the Monday book readings. Seriously, You know, this is a war of the mind. This is where we arm ourselves for knowledge in the war of the mind. And also, in this crazy world, I love this chance to be able to talk with you guys. It means the world to me. Valerie says, this was the greatest night ever so far. Awesome. I'm glad you think so. Thanks for subscribing, Moonbat. Thank you, Matt. And by the way, guys, I'm just going to say, if you do, remember, guys, we do have secret weekly live streams. If you want to be a part of the secret weekly live streams, just to, support on Facebook, or not Facebook, on Patreon, and you can. I'm just going to say that once because I don't want to talk about it too much. But I got a whole bunch of people asking me where the secret live streams are. And so that's where you can find them. Okay. So Green Day says, your book on ontological mathematics is so mind-opening. I'm glad you enjoy that. Yes, it's an extremely important book. Yeah, Patreon is the best way to support, and that's where you get access to the secret live streams. You're so freaking... I'm probably going to be shipping out your book. What is today? Today's Monday, right? Oh, wow. I'm either going to ship them tonight, right after I get off, or tomorrow. Either tonight or tomorrow. I'm going to see, after I get off live stream here, I'm going to eat some food. And then my schedule is so fucked up. I literally woke up, did some things, and then jumped on live here. So after I'm done live, I'm going to eat some food, and then it may very well be tonight that I ship out the orders. Oh, Rachel says, I love the secret live streams. I look forward to them all week. I do too. Merlin David says, I'm from Facebook. Thank you so much. Remember, guys, if you are on Facebook, please go over to YouTube and subscribe. We want to reach 100,000 subscribers, and that's how you can help us get this information out there. Right? That's what we want to do, right? We want to spread this information. We're talking about living archetypes and broadcasting our signal. This is how we broadcast the signal, through social media. So best way you can do it, sharing this video and also subscribing, because that's helped so much. Did I miss any donations? Guys, if I missed some Did I miss anything? I don't think I did. I think I caught everyone up. Okay, so guys, I want to tell you, we have, if you haven't seen my video I recently put on Mubarak Bala, who's currently being persecuted for not believing in God in Nigeria, which is crazy. Make sure you go watch that video. We're going to have another live stream on Thursday, so make sure you look forward to that. And we have, I'm going to be releasing some new videos in between now and then. So keep your eye open for new videos. They're coming out. And next week, oh, T-Bone Terror from Facebook. Great, awesome. Says, love your content, man. Followed you on Facebook a few days ago and have to say, I'm really intrigued by your views. The world needs more logic and reason. Thank you. Thank you, my friend. That's an awesome comment. And thank you for subscribing from Facebook over here to YouTube. That means the world to me. Thank you, my friend. Okay, so Occultist Power says, when you say that we are eternal minds, do you mean the same mind that we use when we sleep and dream, or is it beyond that? A mind we can't perceive, like a mind outside time and space. You as an eternal mind are outside space and time. However, that is the mind that you are. You do construct your dream worlds, right? Your dream worlds are your own personal space and time. Okay, so they're your own personal space and time. Let me see if I have a video that I can show you guys that will demonstrate this, that won't crash my PC because my PC is yelling at me. The fan is going like crazy. Okay, yeah, so take a look. You are an eternal mind. This is outside space and time. This is what you are. You are an eternal mind of frequency patterns, and you exist outside in space and time. This mind links to your bodily avatar, okay? You link to this body. Your mind links to this body, and it gets filtered through your brain and nervous system. When you go to sleep and dream, you are no longer tuned into the public dream, but your own personal dream world that you create within your mind. So you can see that this, when you go to sleep and dream, you enter your own personal dream world. Okay? So once again, this is all, you are an eternal mind, and this is the dream world that is your creation, that all exists within you as an eternal mind, that is outside space and time. You as an eternal mind exist within the source, the domain of frequency. Okay? And you link to this world. Your avatar is what allows you to interact in the dream world that we call the holos. Peter, thank you for coming over from Facebook. Kevin Hall says, reading book 0. Awesome. I'm glad you're enjoying book 0. That's another one of my books. I'm glad you're enjoying it. All right. Hell yeah. Excellent. We blew past 250 likes. Awesome. Okay, guys, I am going to have to go here. I have to eat dinner. I have to refuel my avatar. I really enjoyed this reading. I think it was one of the best ones so far. It's probably say that about everyone, but really great. So we are going to continue our reading of the Kybalion next week. And next week's is going to be interesting. I believe next week's reading is going to be about mental gender. And some other stuff too. And you know how I feel about that. So we're going to talk about it in a certain way that's going to make sense, okay? But it should be an interesting stream for sure. So make sure that you are there next Monday. We're going to continue our reading of the Kybalion. And that might be the final night of the Kybalion. Maybe, I'm not sure. But we might finish the Kybalion next week. And then so the week after we'll start a new book perhaps. So next week might be the final installment of our readings of the Kybalion. So make sure you're there. You don't want to miss that one. It's going to be awesome. So make sure that you are subscribed. And once again, we're not going to stop there, though. We're going to continue these Monday night readings, and we're going to start a new book after that. Awesome, Tailored Willow. Glad you could make it. So, yeah, make sure you do that. And let me see. Big shout out to everyone for subscribing, sharing, and liking. Big shout out to everyone who donated. My God. Tammy, Kizzy, Sandra, Darcy, Scollywag. If I missed any of the big ones, I am so sorry, but thank you guys all so much. Big shout out to our top donor, Kizzy Young. Big shout out. And once again, all you guys are amazing simply by watching, subscribing, sharing, and liking. Thank you so much, and I can't wait to see you all next week for our final, most likely our final reading and installment of the Kybalion. I'll see you there. Ad Astra, to the stars.